Welcome, everybody, to the October 2nd, 2018 Board of Commissioners meeting. Please silence your cell phones, pagers, and other electronic communication devices. Agendas are located at the back of the chambers if you want to follow along. We're going to call the meeting to order. And first on the agenda is a moment of silence and reflection, and this is going to be led by Whitney Rent. Thank you, Whitney. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Whitney. Next on our agenda is the review and approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Moved by Hadcock, seconded by Busker to approve the agenda. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next on our agenda is the consent agenda. I'll recognize Commission Manager Holly Hennies.
Good morning, Commissioners. Holly Handes, Commission Office Manager. Public notice, the Board of Commissioners use the consent agenda to act on non-controversial and routine items. The consent agenda is acted upon by one motion and vote of the Board. Items may be removed from the consent agenda and placed on the regular agenda at the request of a board member or a citizen. Today's consent agenda contains the following items: approval of the minutes of the regular meeting of September 18th, 2018. Number 6 is to acknowledge the notice of intent to conduct a raffle for the Team Ellsworth Spouses Club. And finally, number 7 is approval of the South Dakota Game Fish and Park Services contract/agreement for the Hilltop parking lot as submitted by the Highway Department.
Thank you, Holly. Is there any member from the public that would like to have any of those items removed for separate consideration? Any commissioner? I'd look for a motion for approval.
Move for approval?
Second.
Moved by DeSanto, seconded by Hadcock for approval of the consent agenda. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next, we come to our regular agenda items. And number 8 is an executive proclamation from the Black Hills Powwow for Appreciation Days, October 5th through the 7th of 2018. I'd look for a motion for approval of the proclamation.
Motion to approve.
Second?
Second?
Okay. Moved by Hadcock, second by DeSanto to approve the proclamation. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. At this point in time, what I'd like to do is read the proclamation and present it to Whitney and the Powwow Board, and you guys could come forward. Karen, you can come forward too.
Karen's bodyguard.
Hello. What I'll do is, Whitney, I'll read the proclamation and then I'll present it to you. And I'd like to have some comments from you and your president and Karen. And then I'd give the opportunity for the commissioners to make any comments. And then what I'd like to do is everybody stand up and we take some pictures with you guys. So just to follow through. I don't know how this works.
Tap the top, see if it's on, Lloyd.
Ah.
Apologies, technical difficulties. I want you to stay up
Yeah.
and read that.
At this time, I'd like to present the executive proclamation to the Powwow Board. Whereas the Black Hills Powwow Association has a significant nonprofit organization of Rapid City community since 1983, whereas Rapid City in Pennington County, South Dakota has been host to the Black Hills Powwow Association, which has become one of the premier American Indian cultural events in the United States, attracting thousands of dancers, singers, artisans, and several thousand spectators from across the U.S., United States, and Canadian province and beyond. Where in addition to the powwow, spectators have the opportunity to enjoy the fine arts show, the Hasapa Wind Pageant, the Wellness Symposium for youth, tournaments for hand games, golf, and archery. And whereas the Black Hills Powwow Association promotes artistic excellence through cultural celebration and recognition of cultural diversity. And whereas the Black Hills Powwow Association provides cultural education, cultural arts, resource programming, and technical assistance to schools and other civic organizations. Whereas the Black Hills Powwow Association enhances cross-cultural education, greater understanding, and improvement of the community relations through sharing of their culture. Now, therefore, we, Pennington County Board of Commissioners of Pennington County, South Dakota, hereby proclaim October 5th through October 7th, 2018 as Black Hills Powwow Appreciation Days. We wish all citizens to and encourage them to welcome to participate in the powwow and come dance with us. Enjoy the beauty of the Great Plains and the indigenous song and dance. And I signed this on the second day of October. We just wanted to show our appreciation to what the powwow brings to our community. And I want to share my appreciation to the education piece and bringing people together that you folks are doing. We have a big movement in our community, and you guys are a big part of that. And I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. It's been a long time coming, and this is the best I've seen in a long time. I really appreciate what you guys do, and the commission does too. That's why they approve this for you guys.
Thank you, Stephen.
Thanks. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Very honored today. I believe this is the first time in history that something like this has happened. And it's a blessing to serve as a leader of the powwow. I've been surrounded with a wonderful support system here in Rapid City, in our community, here in the Black Hills. And I can't say enough about my board of directors. They make it very easy for me to make a lot of the decisions, so thankful for them. And then the sponsorship, the community has really come together in making this powwow, taking ownership of it, and providing a wonderful host city and host county for one of the biggest powwows in the world. And so I'd really like to say thank you to the commissioners for making this happen. It's an honor to receive it, and we will for sure let the community and let the people know during this weekend at the powwow what has happened today. And I believe we'll have this read during the powwow weekend. So thank you for everyone has made this possible, and appreciate y'all. You have a wonderful rest of your day, and hope to see you at the powwow.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Whitney Rent, to the second. I am the chair-elect for Visit Rapid City, and we feel that this was such an important step for our community. And I just want to say thank you to Lloyd and the commission for providing the support. You know, we know historically many communities across this nation have been divided, but we believe here in Rapid City that we are taking steps to not only clear the way for better unity, but also for education, understanding that we're all one race, that is the human race. And when we can understand and work together, we believe good things are happening. And we're starting to see that with our youth. And so if we continue forward in this manner, Rapid City is going to be a place that many across the world can look at as a place to learn from. And we have a great opportunity, and we certainly appreciate not only the commission, but also the city of Rapid City and all the organizations here. And it's really great to see the authorities working with the tribal police, throughout the events of the Black Hills Powwow and the Lakota Nation Invitational and all the things that are happening. So we certainly appreciate it. It's a great day here for us here in Rapid City, and it's an honor and a privilege to be part of it. Thank you.
First of all, thank you so much to Lloyd LaCroix and the County Commission for this honor for the Black Hills Powwow. My name is Karen Mortimer, and I'm the director of the Minnelusaha Okolakichiapi Ambassadors. It's a mouthful. It stands for Rapid City Circle of Friends, and we are a group of Native and non-Native leaders working to bridge cultures, educate ourselves and others, advocate and model respectful behaviors. It is an incredible honor to support and work with two incredible leaders in our community, Stephen Yellowhawk and Whitney Rent. We are so fortunate to have them be true leaders in our community and bring this cultural gem in a bigger way than ever to our community. Our goal is to help the Black Hills Powwow to become the biggest in the United States, in the world, by 2021. And so we hope that you will come, bring your friends, share this incredible experience that is for all of Rapid City. So thank you again to the Commission for this wonderful proclamation.
At this time, I'd like to invite the rest of the commission to come down for a picture with you folks, and then giving them the opportunity to express any feelings that they may have. Better over here.
Like, hey, you can't go to read the picture.
All right, everybody say cheese. Perfect. Thank you.
Hopefully the city will be brave enough to take us on. At this time, I'd let any commissioner that have any additional comments. Ms. Hadcock?
Thank you. I think I'm with the commission here, taking steps toward intercultural relations is always a positive for Rapid City and Pennington County. We have been doing this for a while with Pace Law and other events that we have had. I've been invited to Pace Law a few times for some of their ceremonies, healing and different ceremonies that have been pretty amazing. If you have a chance to go to the powwow, I've been there many times and it's beautiful. It's very exciting to learn the culture of someone else that is in our community, or people, I should say. And I've always enjoyed it. It makes you smile. You're just kind of awed by how many things that the Native American people have that are exciting, and you think you know the people and the culture, and you grew up around the people and the culture, but when you go to this event, it's pretty amazing the things you really don't know. So I encourage people to go to the powwow. It's pretty cool. So thank you.
Anybody else?
Sure.
Mr. DeSanto?
Attending it last year, I also would reflect what Deb said. I learned a lot at the powwow that I didn't know. And being of a competitive nature, I would certainly like to challenge the city to come back and try and beat us at the hand games. Because I don't think they stand a chance, so.
Amanda Scott's over there, so she's listening.
Okay, well, pass it on, Amanda.
President.
Mr. Busker.
Yeah, this, no doubt, is a great opportunity for all the citizens of Pennington County and Rapid City to further relations with the various tribes and with the other citizens of Rapid City. So it's just a great opportunity for all of us, and we need to make good use of their generosity in having it in Rapid City.
Yeah, I do. One final comment. This commission just endorsed this weekend field with the events, activities, and they encourage everyone to join hands in friendship and reconciliation. I think Karen put that very well. That's the movement that I was talking about earlier, is that as she said, once we get to know each other and we talk and we eat together or whatnot, we find out we're all the same and we put our judgments aside. It's easy to quick to judge, but once you get to know them, I think we become one. So I want to thank all of you for your presence, Karen and Whitney and Mr. Yellowhawk, and looking forward to seeing you this weekend. Thank you, folks. Next, we'll move on the agenda. Items from the sheriff. School Liaison, Hill City School District. I'll recognize Kevin Tone.
Good morning, Kevin Tone, Pennington County Sheriff, and I sent you a memo previously outlining what we would request in a motion if the commission so inclined to approve it. And the Hill City School District has approached us about adding a school resource, school liaison officer, and what would require for us is additional FTE and some additional funding from the county side. I've outlined the school district's funding, which they're stepping up and helping us with the one-time cost for this year and then contributing to the ongoing funding. And there are representatives here from Hill City, some citizens, some school board members, and the superintendent. So what I'd like to do is turn it over to the superintendent, let him introduce himself and any other members that are here that want to speak, and then we can certainly be available for any questions if that's okay with the chair.
That sounds good, Sheriff. Superintendent?
Good morning, everyone. I'm Mike Hansen, Superintendent of the Hill City School District. First and foremost, I want to thank you for your service to the county. There's a lot of things that you do, and we appreciate everything you do in the Hill City area and throughout the county. We view the school resource officer as an integral part of what we want to offer for our students. First and foremost, from a safety capacity, we know that these are highly trained officers and are capable to deal with a multitude of things. Also, though, we see the SRO position as a great relationship builder for our students and our community in the Hill City area. So we know that they're in the schools daily, at lunch, before school, after school, helping us with those things that require that deftness, that of talent and skill set that practitioners in the educational field may not have. So with this request, the Hill City School District Board of Education authorized me at our September 10th board meeting to approach you all and the sheriff's office for this highly valued position. I can assure you that in my strategic budget planning, it will be a sustainable position, and I consider it an operational component of each and every annual budget during my term in office as a superintendent in Hill City. Highly valued and certainly in light of many things throughout the nation, a high need piece, but also we just feel it is a great public service to our families and our students to build capacity, to build relationships, and to really have that value-added piece to our overall security and safety plan in the school district. And I'll certainly stand by for questions or have any of you now right now.
Thank you, Mike. Currently, there's no motion on the floor, so we'll probably call you back up if we have questions,
Yes, sir.
Mike.
Thank you very much.
We have a few other.
Anybody else wants comments, Mike? I'll be the time.
Good morning, Commissioners. Ron Roskinek, candidate for District 1. I'd just like to point out that my son graduated from the Hill City High School in 2008. So as a father, I know firsthand what can happen in that particular school district, and I would ask that you consider the sheriff's motion today. I know money's always been an issue, but I think safety's paramount. So I appreciate your consideration in this matter.
Thank you, Ron.
Steve Helgland, Special Ed Director, Hill City School District. I'd just like to ask for your support in this issue as well. Deputy Isaacson has been in our district and worked with some of our students in the past, and specifically some of my special ed students, and has done an outstanding job in making sure that they remain safe and that our school is remain safe, and does a good job connecting with students and building relationships. And I think that's real important for our students in this day and age, to have somebody they can go to. So
Thank you, Steve.
thank you.
Hello, I'm Todd Satter. I'm the high school principal, and I need to explain my getup. It's homecoming week and it's denim day. So that's the outfit.
You didn't dress up for us?
I have been in the Hill City School District for 15 years, and when I started, so did Kyle Halverson, and he was our SRO. So I know what it's like to have an SRO on site, and it's wonderful. The difference in campus security and safety with our students is unbelievable. And we've had the last 10 years without an SRO, and we've depended on Marcus Isaacson, Chris Tagnesian, Doug Kimball to be there for us. We really need this position, and I want your vote on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Todd. I can take it. We got support for the rest. Okay. At this time, we have no motion. Is there any questions that the board would have for Kevin Tome?
Mr. Chair.
Mr. DeSanto.
As was with the request for box elder, I would lean the same direction and ask that we sit down with the city of Hill City and find out if they are willing to also be involved in the cost of funding this FTE.
Kevin Tome.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, the Hill City is a little bit unique from what we had with Box Elder, in that Box Elder has its own police department. In Hill City, we are the police department because we provide contract services for Hill City. I don't have the number in front of me exactly, but somewhere in the neighborhood of $125,000, Hill City already puts in towards law enforcement. So I think they do a significant contribution for law enforcement in their community, particularly for a community of their size. So a little bit different than Box Elder's situation.
Okay,
I appreciate
that
the question.
information.
Do you have a follow-up, Mark?
No.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Buskard.
If I remember right, I was against the one in in Wall, because I figured, you start doing this and pretty soon everybody's going to want one. And everybody does want one. However, the past year or so since we've done that, these shootings and the school violence is spreading throughout the United States more than it used to be just a East Coast, Southern phenomena, but it is spreading across the United States, and that's horribly unfortunate. So I will be supporting giving them one. I guess, it's one of those things that it's unfortunate we need to spend money nowadays for police protection, but it seems like we just have to keep going more and more all the time. So I'll be supporting this.
Thank you, Ron. Deb?
I'd like to make the motion, and then if I could have the floor.
Yep.
So Busker doesn't give me crap about speaking, and I'm kidding, Busker. Sorry. The motion is to add one FTE, including 44,500 of funding to the 2019 Sheriff Office budget to support the additional school liaison deputy for the Hill City School District.
I'll second it.
Motion's been made and seconded. Made by Hadcock, seconded by Buskard to approve one FTE with including the funding. You got all that,
Yeah.
Karen? Okay, I'm not going to repeat it. Any more discussion?
I do, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Busker.
Chairman,
as
I-
if
oh,
this-
I
I'm
can
sorry.
still
I
have the
forgot I
floor.
was supposed
Thank
to
you,
go
sir.
back to Deb.
Sorry, Busker. The main
No,
thing.
no, you're not.
See, I told you. So, actually, I like Mr. Busker. So, bottom line is there's a one-time fee, and the school district is gonna pick that up, and that's 25,000, just for the information of the people listening. And then, we are gonna cost share, which is 35,000 for their district and 44,500 for our district. The main issue here is, Kevin, or Sheriff Tome, we do have that, or you do have that in your budget to add for 2019, am I correct?
Mr. Tome.
Mr. Chairman, if I may. Well, the motion as was presented was approval of the FTE and approval of the additional funding. So I don't have the 44.5 in my 2019 budget, if that's what you're asking. That's what the motion is asking for, is the additional funding, if I understood your question correct.
So my bottom line, guys, is where are we getting the funding from for the 44.5?
Well, Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Busker.
I don't know. We'd have to take a look at Holly, but I think we have, how much in our contingency for next year? 165. To me, it would be a good place to get it, but I guess we'll probably worry about that later on. But
Yes, you approved 165,000 for 2019, and you have approximately 76,000 left in 2018's.
that we could move ahead.
That's my understanding, yes. You could take it from 2018. No. Cindy, I'm sorry, I'm gonna look at you. You can't supplement 2018 into 2019 out of, I'm sorry, I don't wanna butcher this. We would have to take it out of 2019's contingency fund. We can do that in January.
So 2018's contingency goes back in the general fund.
Correct.
There you go. Thank you.
So you could use a portion of it in 2018 if there were some expenses in 2018 that we had to incur.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter, but, okay, thank you.
Okay.
Chairman?
Thanks for the question.
Follow up,
Miss-
do we have to make a motion to that? Or we just, in 2019, we're just gonna,
I think in
Okay.
2019, we're going to have to
you, sir.
do the supplement.
all right.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. DeSanto.
Sheriff Tolman? Just to clarify, it says that they'll pick up a majority of the one-time costs. What is the majority of the 25,000, or the approximately 25,000?
Yeah, that was an estimated at 25. That should cover the total amount for the one-time cost.
Okay, and then my next question is the total cost for this annually between both the Hill City School District and the county is 79,500?
That'd be correct. That includes the cost of a vehicle, not just the salaries and benefits, but also the operation of a vehicle.
Okay, so the operational costs of the
Correct.
vehicle. What is the salary for this liaison?
Well, it depends on the deputy you put in there at the time. So, somebody with experience, they're probably in that 45 to 48,000 a year plus benefits. Figure about 25% for benefits, and the balance would be operational costs.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
I have one more, too.
Mr. Busker.
As I read this, they want one right now. So we're gonna have an expense this year.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Okay.
We want to get started as quickly as possible. If we can get them online in November, December, it's kind of what we're looking at. We're just going to absorb that cost this year and not worry about it. But we haven't made a firm commitment yet as to how quickly we can get them online. So we just left it clean, just made it all 2019. Other than the one-time costs this year covered by the school district for 2018, anything that's incurred in 2018 out of our salary side, we'll just absorb that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. We have a motion for approval on the floor. Any further discussion? Any from the public? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries with one no from Mr. DeSanto.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin. Next, we come to item number 10 from the Highway Department. Change order number 1 on project BR 2018-1 bridge repairs. Mark
Good
Shaw.
morning, Commissioners. Mark Chalk, Pennington County Highway. In April of 2018, the board had approved project BR 2018-1 for bridge repairs. This would work on 3 bridges in Dark Canyon, on Dark Canyon Road. The contractor has started work on those bridges, but it recently came to our attention that there'd be some required adjustments on bridge number 52, 363, 326. I had a typo on my cover letter to you there, and that happens to be the first bridge in a series of 3 that needs adjustments to it. Because of the new bridge design, the decks have a 4-inch gap in between them, which over the 7 decks on that unit, it increases width by 2 feet. So in order to retrofit those new style decks to the existing abutments and bent, the abutments will need to be notched out. The bent rails support will need to be lengthened on both sides and the handrails adjusted. So the contractor that's working on that project and was awarded that project this spring is Ainsworth Benning Construction. We asked them what the contract change order would be, what the extra amount of dollars would be. They came up with $17,847.87 for this work. Under current Pennington County policy, the county highway superintendent, or in this case, the acting superintendent, is allowed to sign work orders, or work change orders, I should say, up to a limit of $10,000. So to proceed with the construction or reconstruction of these bridges, we need approval from the board on the change order and signature on the change order for the amount of $17,847.87.
Thanks, Mark. Is there any questions from the board for Mark?
I do.
Ms. Hadcock?
Thank you, Chair. Mark, can you tell me what the 8% general contractor only is for? On that 17,000, he's added 1,280 at 8% of the total of 16,005.
I'm not sure I'm following. 8%?
Yeah.
General contract. That'd be the excise tax, I believe.
Okay, thank you.
I got one, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Buskard?
Is this amount for just the one bridge?
This is a change order for the one bridge. The 3 bridges were in one contract, led under
How
one.
about the other 2? Are they going to need the same thing then?
They are not going to need the same thing. This bridge was
Okay.
complete redecking. The other bridges are partial deck replacement, so they'll still be the old style, so they should fit in. Not saying there won't be other change orders,
Sure, I
but
understand.
not this particular one.
Thank you.
Chairman,
Ms. Hadcock?
your excise tax is at the bottom. Mark, do you excise twice? Contractor excise tax 2.04?
I just looked at that, Deb. I was mistaken on that 8%.
Yes, sir.
It's probably sales tax.
At this point, I guess I cannot tell you exactly what that is there. Sorry.
Prime OH and profit. I don't know what that means either.
I will find out for you. I assumed the 8% was the excise tax, but I was incorrect.
Oh, you're okay.
The
I just
excise
didn't
is on
get
the
where he
bottom,
got the other
2.04.
$1,200 to add to the total when he already added the excise tax at the bottom.
I can make a phone call and get an answer for that if you want to delay decision until later in the meeting.
I don't think we need to delay it, but that's up to this board. We need the bridge fixed.
Right now, there is no way around this. They have started construction on all 3 bridges,
That's what I figured.
and they're partially dismantled. And this is the first in the series of 3. If this one does not get reconstructed, the other 2 do not either. So
We need to get it changed.
We will have to do it one way or another. The board needs to decide if they will want to approve this price.
I have a suggestion.
Go ahead.
At this point, we could approve it with up to the 17, with the wording 1780, 4787, and then he can come back at our next meeting with a clarification.
Chairman,
Mr. Heckott.
we can approve it and then he can email us. We don't have to bring it up on the meeting, but unless the public is, wants, they can call us if they want to know about the 8% as well. But I think he can just email us. I trust Mr. Schock. He's been in this business a long time, so it's just for clarification.
Mr.
I'm just guessing, but when it says prime OH and profit, I'm thinking that's his overhead and profit. He's figuring in at 8%, because up above the 16,000 is actually his expenses for labor, material, and equipment, and the 8% is what he's figuring in for his profit. It's just a guess, but I think that's what it
Project
is.
management.
I think you're right.
Yes.
So
I
I would look for a motion for up to that amount.
That'd be my motion, sir.
Motion was made, seconded by Busker. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thanks, Mark.
Thank you.
Next, we come to item number 11, a petition for declaratory ruling to the South Dakota DNR Water Management Board for ARSD. I'll recognize Jay Alderman.
Good morning, Commissioners. Jay Alderman with the State's Attorney's Office. Item number 11 is what I would refer to as round number 3 of a challenge to Pennington County's septic ordinance. It's a challenge that's being brought in front of the South Dakota Water Management Board. And as you know, 2 prior times there was an application for the same purpose. Those were disposed of without the applicants receiving the relief they were desiring. This is round 3. It appears that on July 10th, 2018, at a meeting of the West Dakota Water Development District, George Farabee and others encouraged and requested that the Water District Board file this third petition. It's largely the same thing. It just challenges Pennington County's authority to adopt an ordinance regulating, in particular, septic systems in the ground prior to 1975. We disagree with their interpretation of administrative rules and the law, and that hasn't changed. And so we're here before you today like we were the prior 2 times, asking for a motion. And if I may, the motion would be to authorize the State's Attorney's Office to file a petition in opposition to West Dakota Water Development District's petition for a declaratory ruling dated August 28th, 2018 in front of the South Dakota Water Management Board.
Thank you, Jay. Any discussion from the board?
Mr. Chair.
Mr. DeSanto.
Jay, this has come before us 3 times, as you said, and I don't know why we are afraid to let this go ahead and go through. If we prove them wrong, we prove them wrong. If we don't, then we get a better ruling.
And it may go through. Our opposition or our involvement, both from the City Attorney's Office on behalf of the City of Rapid City and the State's Attorney on behalf of Pennington County, would be to oppose their interpretation of what they're seeking the board to rule on. So it may well go through a full meritorious hearing. That's possible. But we will be there to give our opinion, both in paper and if necessary, in present, that we oppose what their interpretation of the law is, they being the applicant. So it may go.
Would we not be there to defend ourselves anyway, if we allow them to go through with requesting a declaratory ruling?
The prior 2 times we came before you just so that it was completely transparent and that we were representing the county's interests. So that's why we're here today, is to simply do that.
Any follow-up?
Is that not the job of the water management district to give declaratory ruling on, or get declaratory ruling on different things that we present, or on ordinances that might be in conflict with what they feel is proper?
That may well be a part of their job, but in so doing and considering the applicant's interpretation of the law, we disagree with that interpretation. So we want a hearing as well to share our position on that. And that's pretty typical. So we're here to just simply get the authority to move forward and defend the county's position on that. And it'll be up to the board ultimately to decide however they decide.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Busker.
someday I would like us to figure out just how much money the county, the taxpayers, the state has paid for one lousy septic tank out in the county. This is the third time it's been before the board. I don't know how many times it's been to court for a $200 fee. It is amazing to me how somebody can sit up here and say he's a proponent of saving the taxpayers' tax money when he spends it on foolish, crappy things. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Busker. Ms. Hadcock.
So when I'm reading this, it says that the reason given was the water board had no jurisdiction, that Richard did not appear. So that was the second ruling, and then Richard didn't appear for the ruling?
Let's keep to,
I guess that's what I'm saying. Why are we opposing or not opposing? Because the second one, that's what I'm trying to say, Lloyd, is why a third? Because we're talking about the third, so why was it brought up a third time when the guy that brought it up the second time never even appeared?
those are just the minutes from the water board meetings.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
The third applicant is trying to accomplish what the first two applicants did not, and they're taking another run at it. Plain and simple.
So
we're
they're
here to
using another taxpayer entity to bring it up a third time, because isn't the water district board, aren't they paid by the taxpayers? So George is using another taxpayer entity to bring stuff through.
Mr. Chair, point of order. George isn't on trial here. And this is about a whole group of people. It's not about George. And frankly,
Okay,
every
you
single
called
time-
order, you called order. I understand your clarification, but in the minutes, his name is mentioned as bringing
and
it
over.
forward. But let's keep to this document and,
Well, that's why I
okay,
said,
so
sir.
let's,
It's been up 3 times, and it's the same man bringing it through, so it is about George, and it's about his septic. So you can say that, and now you're saying it's about a declaratory ruling on that septic for the third time. So it's still about George.
okay, let's,
response.
So I don't know how you put it a different way.
Mr. DeSanto, did you have a response?
Yes, I do, please.
Mr. DeSanto.
I believe that this declaratory ruling is about all septics. It's about a lot of county taxpayers that have septics that disagree with the ordinance. It's not about one person. It's about all the people in the county. I've owned many septics. We've asked multiple times, or I've asked multiple times, to get somebody here to explain septics. I believe that our ordinance is an overreach. And I'm not advocating for anyone in particular. I'm advocating for all the rural people that I cover, from Rapid Valley to Wall, that are exposed to this ordinance. I was opposed to it before I even knew George Fairview. So I want to make it very clear, I think that this is about an entire group of people. It's not about one person. And every time something comes up having to do with septics or water or anything, everybody on this board, I know you're all bent out of shape because you feel like George has cost the county money and everything else, but we got to get away from when something like this comes before us, pointing fingers. This isn't just about George. This is about everybody that owns a septic. And I personally, or not personally, but I, as a representative of my district, have heard from multiple people. Just last week, another man got a hold of me about him getting fined for his septic. And it just, I think that we have overreached. We've in this ordinance, and I think that there's a lot more people than just George Fairby that think that we have overreached with this ordinance. So that's what I have to say.
So Chairman, can I?
Now, let me respond real
Okay,
quick.
go
I
ahead.
think we've let everybody but me. You have a good point, Mark. I tried to say, let's stick to the issue, not the person. But in this case, that's why I had the minutes put on there. We had a commissioner at another meeting advocating for this and telling them how to do it and so forth, which gives shadow of doubt and so forth of how things are come forward. You know what I'm saying? So it's easy. I understand your part, and there are many people out there who are against it. But when you have a lawsuit and you have other stuff going on and you're an elected official, the perception is as it is.
I understand.
And that's why I had the notes put on there, because it's very well put in the minutes, documented. And I did try to eliminate this. If Mr. Farabee was here today, I would ask him, do you have a conflict of interest? I asked him that at the previous documentation. He said no. I would have asked him again today if he would have had one, and we would have nipped it in the bud. That's my 2 cents, Mrs. Hadcock.
So I agree with a lot of what you said, Mark. You don't want to like go and say something about one person, but since I've been on this commission with George, and I hung around George and kept telling him, George, if the rules and regs aren't what you like, you are not on that side of the dais, you are on this side of the dais. So I will tell you the same thing, Mark. If you have so many people, then why aren't you working on changing the ordinance? Because I keep saying, I don't agree with everything in the ordinance, but when I don't agree with something as a commissioner, because we're on this side now, I'm going to take it to task, but I'm not going to pick on one thing. I'm not going to pick on septics. I'm going to get a group of people together, and I'm going to look at the ordinance again. And if that's your intention, that's all I would say, and I have said it to him. What I did get tired of was the same thing. You're repeating the same thing over and over again, and you're on this side of the dais, and it's time to change not only one piece, but look at the whole ordinance.
Absolutely.
And see where we're going. So I'm in agreement with you, but I'll also be fair and say this to be fair to you. I have tried over and over again to say I would help you, George, or I would help a group of people if they wanted to change it at that time, and it's never happened. That's why you get frustrated.
Okay, one more follow-up before we go to the public.
Agreement
Go
with
ahead,
you, Mark.
Mr. DeSanto.
Here's a group of people that are trying to change it.
Okay.
So let's get together with this group of people
You're in charge of
and
that
talk
one.
to them.
Yep,
Okay?
that would be good to look at the ordinance again.
Okay, I think we have some people in the public that would like to speak.
Okay.
Currently, there's no motion on the floor. So,
Thank you, and my name is Julie Fry Mueller. I am a representative for District 30, and Commissioner Farabee is my commissioner. I think the reason people think George is wasting tax dollars is because, how would I say?
the issue, not the
They
person.
disagree with his position on it, and he keeps challenging it. There's a statute, which you guys all know about, ex post facto, the grandfather clause. And there is a person in this room that I have talked to, and he has specifically told me there is no such thing as ex post facto. And there is. It's in law. Unless the footprint of our property has changed, there's leaching or point source contamination, we are grandfathered in. And people do not seem to understand, yes, people do not seem to understand that statute. I am sorry if you think I'm getting it wrong, but it was there to protect the public because laws change all the time, ordinances change. People bring codes up to different heights. We can't always go back and revise our plumbing, our electrical, our septic to those new standards every time. Every time. That's why the grandfather clause exists, to protect the citizens. George is the one standing out because we caved. There was hundreds of people at the meetings between up and Johnson Siding, and we've had them on Highway 16. There was hundreds of people, but we caved. We caved to the power because it wasn't the $20 septic ordinance. It was the fact we were fighting because it's common sense. The law was put in there to protect people. And this law stomps all over us. My husband and I, after 2 years, because we were threatened with criminal charges if we didn't pay a $20 septic ordinance. Criminal charges. We've never done anything wrong. We have not done anything wrong. And this is a topic on steroids. And I think it's really sad it's gotten to this point. And Mark, I would be more than happy to work with you and bring as many people as you want. But I don't think it'll change the power that's in this group or this county commission part with the people that are targeting George. Yeah, George is George.
Okay, let's stay, no
I'm
more
sorry,
talking, and stick to the issue. You're doing very good, Julie, but let's stop bringing him into it and going off from deals.
But I'm sorry,
Speak on-
Commissioner Buskerud is the first one that did bring him in, and then Commissioner Hadcock, and everyone has brought George into the
We had to
issue.
discuss the issue of why it was on there, but I want to stick to the issue.
Okay, what I think needs to be done is you guys need to look at whether or not you want to enforce ex post facto or not. Because I hear on the news, well, we're not going to go back and do this because it happened before the time. So we are picking and choosing what items we want to grandfather in and which ones we don't. And I think that's got to be looked at. Thank you.
Thanks, Julie. Is there anybody else that would like to speak? Seeing none? Is there any further discussion from this board?
One more thing. Am I right? But this went to the state water board, this after it went here, and they ruled against it the first time. So I don't think it's just on us. They took the same thing that we did. So bottom line is we didn't rule. We just sent a resolution, and then they ruled on it, and then they did it a second time, and now they're on a third time. So it's not just us. You work for the state, right?
I do, but can I
Okay.
ask you a question?
Oh,
Are you
hold
talking
on,
about a
is it-
couple of
hold
years
on
ago?
here. We're getting out of hand, going back and forth, and that's not what we're going to do here.
No, are we just
No,
talking about a couple of years
just
ago?
hold on. I don't,
I guess I was just
did you have a
wondering.
question?
No, I just thought we had brought it through the state, so I was trying to figure it out why it's just us today.
So she didn't have a question. Now, Julie, what is it you want to continue on?
Well, no, I'm just wondering if, because she's correct, are you talking about a couple of years ago when the State Water Board looked at it in October?
Right, and then
Okay,
the second time.
Mike and I were there for that meeting, and they refused to allow us to speak. We were there, we went the night before, got there on time. They refused to allow us to speak, and I do not know why.
Thank you,
for clarifying that.
I just want to remind the commission, what we have on our agenda is to not make it, we've already made this decision twice. This is to authorize the state's attorney's office to file a petition in opposition of the request for.
That'd be my motion.
Moved by Hancock, seconded by Busker. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries with one no from Mr. DeSanto. Thank you. Next, we come to item number 12, and this is a motion to direct the Planning Commission chairperson to call a special meeting to hear the Kroll Ready Mix, Inc. application for construction and mining permits.
So Chairman, do we have to ask
Uh,
PJ? Dates?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to ask PJ, what are we doing here?
There you go.
Me too.
I was just at a loss of words. I was going to go.
Whoa.
Morning, PJ Conover, Director of Planning Department. What we're looking to do is, per the bylaws 6.2 of the Planning Commission, A special meeting can be called either by a majority of the commission or of the board. And since the board meeting was prior to the commission meeting, and for sake of time, we're asking you to direct the chairperson to hold a special meeting for the construction and mining permits that Kroll submitted. And that meeting, we're looking to schedule 5 or 6 hours, get as much done in a short amount of time as possible.
It'd be a special meeting of the planning commission.
Correct.
Yeah. And I'm on it next.
Do you have some dates?
Not yet, no.
You're lucky.
Probably
You get all the good
sometime,
jobs.
actually, I don't even know.
Yeah, that way the public knows, so maybe we should, sorry, Chairman.
Yeah. Well, the planning commission to discuss it after, if you decide to
Yeah,
direct it.
okay. Now, did you have a follow-up, Deb? You start
Sorry, sir,
before we go to Mark.
just wondering what the dates are for the public, so that way we can announce it at the next meeting, so it's not too far or, too close to where the public doesn't know about it.
I think this is just a request, the
Yes.
chairman, so,
Yep, and the planning commission meets on Monday, I'm sure
Yeah.
we'll discuss.
okay. I'm gonna go to Mark. Mr. DeSanto.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to see the application. I think we're jumping ahead of things. Has anybody seen the application? Any of us commissioners? I haven't seen the application. I'd like to see the application submitted by Kroll so I know what they're asking for before I vote for a special planning commission meeting.
Acting for a mining permit.
Michelle Hoffman, State's Attorney's Office. This application will need to be heard either at a regular meeting of the Planning Commission or a special meeting. The only reason there is a request that this board direct the chairperson to schedule a special meeting is that putting this agenda item, which will likely be somewhat controversial, will extend maybe a 3-hour meeting into an 8-hour meeting. So one way, whether you approve this or not, this application will be heard.
That's a good point.
And in regard to Commissioner Hadcock's question, the notice provisions under the current Section 320 will be complied with. Kroll will have to mail notices within 30 days of the hearing to property owners, I believe, within 500 feet of the Pearly Pit, and there will be 2 notices published in the newspaper at least 10 days in advance of the scheduled meeting.
Thank you, Ms. Michelle.
Mark, do you have a follow-up?
No, Michelle.
Mr. Chairman, I
Mr.
want to make a
Foster.
motion to direct the planning director to schedule a special meeting of the planning commission to consider the mining permit application submitted by Kroll.
I'll second that.
And for him to set you to set the date, whatever fits.
Well, it would actually be the board directing
Travis.
the chair of the planning commission to do it.
Yes, okay.
So motion's been made and seconded. Is there any discussion from the public? Any from the board? All in favor indicate, did you have a comment?
I'm here on behalf of Black
Oh,
Hills Concerned Citizens.
Okay.
Thank
I
you.
didn't see you wave your hand or anything, so, okay, go ahead, Julie.
I am part of the group Black Hills Concerned Citizens, and we are the ones that have been opposing a lot of some of the Kroll activities to the extent of which they are. And is it possible to make sure that Dwayne Abada and Don Berger are kept in the loop on communications of when these meetings are going to be held? Or
Julie, this is to request a meeting, a special meeting so that we could bring the people together, and that's all they concentrate on. So that's all this board's dealing with, so then it'll go to Travis on Monday in the discussion, and you could bring that up on Monday with Travis and those guys when they do set a meeting and so forth. This is just, I think it's a good move to have a special meeting because then you could deal with that one subject.
And thank you. Don and Dwayne are both out of state. One's out of the country and one's out of the state, and they asked me if I could come in and request that they be kept in the loop so that they can get time off, like Dwayne from work and stuff like that, so they can be participating in these meetings. Thank you.
They can be kept in the loop the same way everybody else can.
That's, yeah. Okay, Michelle Hoffman.
To put everyone's mind at ease, I already spoke with Kelsey Parker, who is counsel for the Concerned Citizens this morning concerning the meeting.
Okay.
Michelle?
So we have motion and a second for approval. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next, we come to item number 13, items from chair and commission members. Conduct of Commissioner George Farabee, District 1, and question of vacancy of office per South Dakota Load Law 7-8-2, Commissioner LaCroix. You know, at the last meeting, I'm kind of surprised Mr. Commissioner Farabee's not here today. I talked to him a little bit Saturday, and I wanted to give him the opportunity to explain what was going on. And that was my point, is to ask him, does he plan on fulfilling his seat as a commissioner and his duties? What also came through light of this was when he changed his registration form, there's parts of the law that say that you must vacate your seat from the time you do that. When he signed that, I got notice as chairman that he changed his residence, changed his party, and was made aware of that instance. I called him right away and asked him what was going on. And then the response that I got is that he changed his affiliation to another party so he could run for another office. And then our discussions went into how resignations happen and how I wanted to know, so if I needed to put it on the agenda. And he brought up several other items. So during the conversation, I assumed through our cordial conversation that eventually his plans were to resign. At this point in time, I'm frustrated. I'm frustrated of coming to chair a meeting and seeing the commissioner not showing up, not giving any notice. At least if any other commissioner, if something's going on, they contact me or the office and say they're not going to make it, or they're going to be late, or something along those lines. Or we put in a process to where they can teleconference in. I don't know how many of you guys have looked up what's online with the voter registration and read the laws and so forth. I'm no lawyer by all means. I don't try cases. I don't try to be. All I know is ethically what I think what happened here is totally wrong. I gave him the benefit of the doubt by giving him the time to resign like he should have been. And that's what I expressed. And I think he needs to address this to the public. I wanted to give him that opportunity. Because it's not me he needs to explain to. He needs to explain it to you. Why a person would change their registration where they're not living and try to run for another office while they're currently sitting in one. It's ethically wrong. I'm going to leave it at that for right now. I think this effect has had some sort of effect on not only the public, but each commissioner up here. And I'm going to give each commissioner an opportunity to speak on this issue. And then I'll go to the public for any input from how you guys feel. Ms. Hadcock.
Well, bottom line is it says on number 12, South Dakota voter registration form, I declare under penalty of perjury, which is 2 years imprisonment and $400 fine, that I am a citizen of the United States. I actually live and have no present intention of leaving the above address. I will be 18 on or before the next election. I have not been judged mentally incompetent. I am not currently serving a sentence for a felony or conviction, and I authorize cancellation of my previous registration if applicable. So on 8/17/2018, Commissioner Farabee, George M. Farabee signed this. So then, based on the law, the nomination of election of a county commissioner shall by a vote of the voters, which is 7-8-2 of the district of which such candidate is a registered or resident voter. However, if any county commissioner moves from the district to which such person was elected, or if any county commissioner fails to attend the commission meeting for 4 consecutive months, the office shall be declared vacant, and such vacancy shall be filed pursuant 3-4. So basically, when you changed your address, doesn't matter if it's Commissioner Farabee or Deb Hadcock, and I've seen it on the city council, you are no longer a county commissioner or whatever position you're in. Even if you want to say and tell people that you're going to change it back if you lose your election for the Constitutional Party, which was done by Commissioner Farabee, he changed his address back. Well, that's a whole different ball game. So our job as county commissioners is to follow through with 7-8-2, and by law, and I always say, what would George Farabee do? You're spending taxpayer dollars when you are actually have a vacant seat. So we're spending money, the taxpayers, on a guy that actually, that seat is vacated. Number two, follow the law. The law is the law. Isn't that what's said all the time by Mr. Farabee? The law is the law. Bureaucrats or politicians shouldn't be above the law. So, follow through. Say as you say, do as you do. Do what's right.
Mr. DeSanto.
I would say that causes some problems not having George here. That's for sure. Whether or not who makes this decision, I don't know. Who makes this decision? I don't know if it's up to us or up to the court or what. If you move for 2 days and you move back, is this applicable? I don't know. Like you said, I'm not an attorney either. So does it cause a question? Yeah, absolutely it does. Does it cause us to have issues where when we're voting on something, it turns out to be a 2-2 vote left and right? Yes, it does. I'd like to hear from Commissioner Farabee, frankly. I guess that's my bottom line.
I'll just, before I go to you, Ron, I just will mention that I did talk to Mr. Farabee a little bit on Saturday. He didn't say whether he was going to be here or not. I assumed he was. So.
Did you?
And I expressed in our,
Them or did
no, he wanted to have coffee, and the more I thought about it on Sunday, I decided that was not a good thing to do. But in our phone conversation, I expressed just what I'd said earlier, that I wanted to give him his opportunity to explain. Ron.
Well, I think Commissioner Farabee was playing games again like he's done for quite some time since he's been on here. And that is, I'm going to move into town, then I'm going to run for office, and if I can't do that, then I'm going to move back again. And he was trying just to pull a fast one by changing parties, changing addresses. It's time we call him. I would like to hear his explanation too, because I don't see, there isn't one. Either you forfeited your office and it's vacant, or I guess you committed perjury. I'm not sure which one he would choose, but that's just two options. And disappointing again that he's not here. I guess I don't know. I'm ready to declare the office vacant.
I guess,
I don't know if that's our job.
well, this is what I want, I think we're gonna get some thoughts on this. I think we have two options for this board, maybe three.
Need his options.
I think we could, my total intentions was to ask him to resign today, ethically. The board could offer a letter asking for his resignation underneath that, and you could vote on it and send it out. Other option, I guess I'd have to confirm on Mark's behalf, does the board give direction to follow up on the perjury part? That would be an option if he, depend on his, Mr. Vargo's information.
Pennington County State's Attorney Mark Vargo. Ultimately, I think that there are a number of different options open to the board. I will tell you, Commissioner Buskard and I have had a chance to talk at some length. There is certainly case law out there that suggests that this commission does not have the authority to remove a commissioner. I'm not sure that that authority is on all fours, as we say, meaning there might be some room to distinguish it from other authority, in the sense that a board generally has authority over its own members. That being said, what I would recommend, and ultimately it's my decision and not yours, and I'll just say that flat out, is an action called quo warranto. And what that is the mechanism by which you ask a circuit court to remove somebody from public office or to declare whether someone is eligible to hold public office. They're most often used in election contests, in other words, where two people claim that they both won the election. And so I think that that is certainly one of the mechanisms, and the board can, I think, request that I do that. By statute, it's actually my decision and not yours, but obviously we work with you and we try to work with you well, so that would be certainly appreciated if that's something you want us to do, to express the board's approval of that. I think what Commissioner LaCroix suggested, a letter from the board requesting Commissioner Farabee's resignation, would also be within your powers and appropriate. As it relates to the question of perjury, it is one of the hardest criminal cases to prove, and ultimately the investigation that has been done to thus far, absent some kind of an admission, I don't believe it would be in the interest of the public or the proper use of public resources to attempt to file a charge at this time. So ultimately, I think your options are basically a letter to him. I do believe you have the option of removing him from the board, but I'm going to tell you, I think that that would be dicey legally. A direction to the state's attorney's office or a request to the state's attorney's office to file the quo warranto. I think those are your options. Or to do nothing.
Mr. Vargo, on that first option, Aliquento, probably not even pronouncing that right.
I have trouble with that one.
Have to pronounce for everyone.
Yeah. That's a local ruling, and I'm assuming the time frame for all this is what I struggle with. We're down to the last 3 months. And I think it's cost the taxpayers plenty of money. I think I'm trying to give Mr. Farabee an honorable way to exit. Did he break the law? I think he did. I think each one of us know he did. But I understand the state's attorney's office, your view on this. So I'm going to open it up to see what other options, what options the commission would like to pursue.
Chairman.
Ms. Hadcock.
So if you wanted to do the honorable way, don't you think he would already done it? Because he knows. Number two, suspend him without pay until that time that the court goes through, because he's not showing up anyway. Number three, you know he knows he broke the law, because you know he read it. So I'm gonna say, you can go through all that process, but shouldn't he be taking us to court or proving it instead of us and making us pay for that? If he thinks we're wrong, why don't we just let him take us to court? Because that's what he'll do. Do you see what I'm saying? Why would we take the time to prove something that we know? Make him prove it.
Largely because that's how it works. When we want to remove someone, when we want to do something to someone, generally speaking,
Right.
we bear the burden of proof to some level, whether it's a civil level of preponderance or criminal level of beyond a reasonable doubt. That's just kind of how it works. And I can understand the frustration when it seems so very clear.
Right.
But no matter how clear it is, people get their day in court. And Commissioner Farabee, if we file a quo warranto action, because it is my opinion, and I will tell you, I believe the quo warranto action would be well received, assuming he did not perjure himself.
Right.
And let's just assume that for the moment, that he didn't sign that affidavit in bad faith. I don't know if that's true, but let's assume it. If we assume that, the statute says, as of that moment, that position is vacant. There's no further action that needs to be taken. We still have to have somebody say that that's what happened, but he can't move out and move back in. That position is vacant, and the only way to get back to that position is either to be appointed by this board, because the board fills the vacancy, or to run for re-election later on down the road. Those are the only two ways to get back to that seat. If he moved out of his district, which he says under oath that he did, he is not a commissioner at this point.
So,
But we still have to go through the process of having somebody say that out loud.
So Mark, in that instance, then, okay, we're gonna go to court. What does this board have authority to do to him? And can we suspend him without pay? Can we do other things? So at this point, he understands we're not okay if this board decides that. We're not okay with the games that are being played, because went to court 15 times on another issue. Are we just kicking the can down the road and maybe nothing should happen? We all agree that this is something that he should do on his own, and then he sits in office and comes and goes whenever he wants to this court case and does the same stuff he's doing now. How can we change that up here as a board, or can we not?
Your options are somewhat limited. The quo warranto would become moot as of when his term ends, and so whether we could accomplish a summary judgment in that time frame, which would actually remove him from office, and then he would not be eligible to submit mileage, for instance, and come in for, I don't know what it was last time, 5 minutes and then leave. I assume that at the end of the year, he'll submit his mileages, he generally does. Those vouchers can be questioned, but he would not be eligible to do those things again once he'd been removed by the quo warranto. Your actions as far as what you can do to him now are going to be governed more by HR than by what I'm going to be able to tell you. That's going to be on the county handbook, and again, you would have to have reasons to do the things that you do. And there's due process to all of that. So it is not a simple and easy thing, and our system is set up to protect individuals. Commissioner Farabee, like anyone else, is entitled to avail himself of those protections. Again, even if it seems just blatantly clear on its face what the circumstances are.
So basically, today, we do the quo warranto, or whatever you called it.
You can
And
do,
we decide that if that's where we want to go, and that Commissioner Farabee's free to come and go as he pleases, like he has been, until that comes up, unless this board does like a code of conduct or something else against him, or declares something else, so.
Okay, Deb, I want to go, to Mark.
No, I'm
Mark,
done.
You
Thank
done?
you, sir.
Mark, did you say, you look like you
Thank you,
wanted-
Mr. Chair. This sounds like a lot of trouble and expense. So what I would suggest we do is, as a commission, send George a letter requesting him that he show up at the next meeting and explain what he's done. If he doesn't show up at the next meeting, in the body of that letter, state that we will press forward with intentions to vacate his seat. And then I think we'll accomplish both things with that letter. We'll get, either he's going to show up and explain himself, or he's not, and he will at that time know that it is the commission's intent to vacate his seat. I guess the reason I'm suggesting that is to try and possibly accomplish what Deb's saying, that maybe he'll come in and say, you know what, you're right, I screwed up, and I'll resign. Or, and it could save us all this trouble of having to file charges against him and everything else.
Do you have a follow-up, Mr. Vargo?
The only thing that I was going to say to Mr. DeSanto is obviously, and I know that the materials that you received are fairly basic.
Right.
Commissioner Farabee has been contacted as part of the investigation as to whether or not this was perjurious, and was certainly aware from his conversation with Commissioner LaCroix that this was a topic of conversation for today. I think he's kind of told us where he sits on this as to whether he wants to talk to us. I believe Commissioner LaCroix, did he not express to you specifically that if he was coming today, he wasn't going to say anything?
Yeah, he did. He wasn't going to talk about.
I think he's kind of said he's not interested in that. And my only point to that, Commissioner DeSanto, because I don't think you're wrong about that, is if we're going to do this, we should do it in such time as we have at least some chance of it happening before it's all entirely mooted. So if delaying it 2 weeks, if he's already said he's not going to talk, not a whole lot of point to that.
I've got a suggestion
Yes, sir.
or an idea. Don't mean to interrupt. Mark, you done?
I'm done.
I think we as a board draft a letter asking for his resignation. We vote on it, have it mailed out. But in the same sense, what you talked about with the
Well, rental.
new rental, we move forward with that also. Because if the resignation comes through, we can stop.
That is true.
I think that way we're taking both actions that where we want to go, and we're sending a clear message to that commissioner that we're moving forward. I think if we delay it any more than this, it's not good. Those are my suggestions. The only person who hasn't spoken second is Mr. Busker. Would you like to speak?
I would. I know we don't have the authority to remove him until he misses 4 months of meetings or something, which is ridiculous. But we do have the ability to hold a fellow commissioner in contempt. I'm not sure if not coming to meetings rises to the level of contempt of this board, but it can be said, and Mark said it, what it causes is a lot of, and it has happened, a few 2-2 votes, which holds up all the people out there that are here expecting a decision from us. And he has all these decisions in his grasp because he controls, and I think that's what he likes to do. But that being what it is, I guess I would like to hear your opinion on holding him in contempt. And it used to be that you could fine him $5 a day, but 1 day in 24 hours in jail. Well, unfortunately, they removed the 24 hours in jail, so I think it's a $5 a day fine, which, I'm sure that not going to stop too many people from doing too much. But.
Mr.
I will admit I did not come prepared for that question, Commissioner, but I will tell you, at $5 a day, we'd have to hold him in contempt a long time before we'd justify even the amount of money that you're going to spend on Jay researching whether you can do it. So we'll certainly look into it if you want us to.
Well, not just for the $5. If there's another remedy of, I don't know what it would be. I mean, it's like having a officer in school to go out and get truants, and their punishment is not coming to school for 5 days. It doesn't make any sense. So what would we do to him? We're not going to allow you to come to the meetings anymore. Well, you can see where he is today, so I'm not sure it matters.
Well, I know that generally speaking, for instance, most of the commissioners do not submit vouchers for their travel to the meetings from their residences. The commission could certainly alter that policy and say that you don't get paid for coming in, but that would apply to everybody. Because I know that Commissioner Farabee does in fact put in for those, and he's legally entitled to under our rules. You could change that rule, which would remove one of the benefits of, that he gets, or it would certainly be more than $5, let's put it that way.
Okay. Folks, I'm going to throw out that motion that I talked about.
Chairman, if I could speak one more time.
I wanted to say one more.
It's about your motion.
Okay, Mark was next on,
Okay.
next. Mark.
Mr. Chair, my concern also is that of if we move forward and deem that he vacated his seat, then we would be saying he vacated his seat as of the date of this application, 8/14 of 2018.
Well, that's his constitutional point.
And, okay, 8/17, regardless, if he vacated his seat as of 8/17 of 2018, every decision we've made that he has voted on since then would be what?
Suspect. Particularly if it was a 3-2 decision where he was in the majority. I believe we've kind of kept a weather eye on that, and I don't believe there were any of those. But they would be suspect, because his authority to vote in those was suspect.
Is that a can of worms we want to open up?
Yes.
Let me just say, Commissioner DeSanto, even if we don't, somebody who believes that we should have opened that can of worms can say he shouldn't have been there, and they can still bring that. So whether we bring the quo warranto or not, a person who was on the wrong side of a 3-2 decision where Commissioner Farabee was in the 3, and therefore it should not have passed, would still bring the claim that that was improperly decided by this commission. So we're not the triggering device for that. We may kind of let people know now. This may become more popularized and people may notice it. But as I said, I believe we've kept a pretty close weather eye on that, and I don't believe that there have been decisions in which Commissioner Farabee was in the majority of a 3-2 decision. And if he's in the minority of a 3-2 decision, that would effectively turn into a 3-1 decision, no harm, no foul.
Okay, you done, Mark?
I'm done.
You get a second to your motion?
No, I never got everybody wanted to talk before I made my motions.
So bottom line,
One sec.
a clear message to ask him to resign when you already did, to me is, you know, you're the chair, you represent us, you already asked him, it didn't happen, now you're gonna have the board do it. And then we're gonna do the quo warranto or whatever it's called and delay it. Are we really accomplishing anything here? Except that we're telling people in his district that this board doesn't agree with what he's done, and that we're gonna take him to court to see if we can remove him from office. I think he's, at this point, when this gets out, we've already done our due diligence, and I don't wanna keep playing games. This just keeps kicking the can down the road like his other court case. Same game, another day. So I don't know if I'm going to vote for it, because bottom line is we're just going to play another game with him. So he likes that.
Well, you done, Deb?
Thank you.
I'm going to make my motion first, and then I'd like to speak. My motion would be to send him a letter asking his resignation, draft a letter, and also go, as we stated, yeah, you know what I'm talking about. So that would be my motion. It's motion been made and seconded. Now for the discussion part of that. The reason why I say that, Deb, and I totally understand everybody's frustration out here, and I did not make this decision lightly. I turned it over to have it investigated, had hours of talking about this. There is no good option. without, I mean, we could move forward and it's gonna cost, I understand people, the right, we should go after them, and I agree. But at some point, we make this decision, and in 2 months, it's done with, whether he takes the honorable way or not, that's his choice. And we move forward with the other part, and if something falls through, that doesn't work, that's okay. But at least with this, the board has made a consensus decision. Not just Lloyd LaCroix asking him or thinking he should. It's the consensus of this board supporting what I believe would be what the community would want. Some sort of action, not just let it go.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Buskard.
I agree. I mean, I would like to take steps right now to get, frankly, to vacate that. But as perhaps some of you remember, I suggested once upon a time not to follow the correct due process procedures and kind of got raked over a little bit on that one. So I think I will probably go along with the due process, and probably that involves your suggestion and the state's attorney's suggestions.
Any further discussion?
I'd make a substitute motion. Out of respect for his voters in his district, I would again suggest in a substitute motion that we send a letter of request to George saying, show up at the next meeting, explain yourself, and answer our questions. Or we will proceed with, and I know it's just kicking it down the can, I understand what Mark's saying. Or we will proceed with the intent to vacate his seat, or procedures to vacate his seat.
Motion was made with a little bit of explanation. Is there a second? Motion dies for lack of a second. At this time, I think us as a board have discussed this wholeheartedly. So I want to give the public an opportunity. There is a motion on the floor, as we stated, that we draft a letter asking for resignation and move forward with some other stuff that Mr. Vargo can explain much more elegantly than I can. But is there anybody in the public who would like to speak on this? Have any comments, feelings? None. One more. Well,
Commissioners, I'm going to speak to you not as your office manager. I'm going to speak to you as Holly Henny's a voter in District 1. Commissioner Farabee is my commissioner. I'd ask you to support the original motion and hold him accountable. I don't feel that the residents and the voters in District 1 have a voice. And with him not showing up, what voice do we have? I think it was inappropriate. He wasn't here to speak for the Hill City item. He didn't vote on the budget. What good is it to have him here and just let him get away with it? I hope you support the motion and hold him accountable any way that you guys have available. And if it's the Colorento, I'd ask you to support it.
okay. Thank you, Holly. Anybody else that got a desire to speak on the subject? Seeing none,
How about a roll call, please?
we'll go to a roll call vote. And remember that the motion on the floor is to draft a letter asking Mr. Farabee to resignation and also go forward with the, please.
If I could explain if I
Explain
could
that.
suggest the language, I would suggest that the motion be viewed as to draft the letter calling for his resignation and to send a letter to the state's attorney's office indicating support for a quo warranto action. I'll spell that for you later.
Yeah, please do.
Okay. So that is the motion on the floor, and we're going to do a roll call vote.
Okay. Buskard?
Aye.
DeSanto?
Nay.
Hadcock?
Aye.
LaCroix?
Aye. Motion carries with a 3-1 vote. Thank you, folks, and thanks, Commission, for going through this. Next, we have item B, which is government safety trip to Illinois by Commissioner DeSanto. I'll recognize Mr. DeSanto.
Thank you. Just to clarify, we've had maybe some possible miscommunication as far as my trip to Peoria, Illinois. I chose to forego going to the state convention, County Commissioner State Convention, to go and learn about Highway Department, the safe operation of equipment, both for the operator and for the public. There was an opportunity to go to Peoria, to the Caterpillar factory. They were putting on a governmental safety and training symposium. There were probably 100 different highway department superintendents and commissioners from all over the United States attending this symposium. And it was at no expense to the county, which saved the county probably, I don't know, $300-400 because I didn't go to the convention. And my intent in going to this symposium was specifically to learn more about how to make better decisions when it comes to one of our largest expenses as a county, how to properly maintain roads, what types of equipment we should be purchasing, as far as not brand of equipment, but types of equipment. Recognizing and being able to recognize whether or not our equipment is being operated efficiently and safely. When I'm driving by one of our highway department employees mowing the center strip of I-90, are they avoiding obstacles that could possibly hit a blade and be flung into the highway and cause a car accident? Are they getting in and out of their equipment in a proper manner so as to avoid, and I mean, the testament of our safety record shows that they are, but to be able to recognize whether or not we're doing our job correctly as commissioners when it comes to voting to purchase new equipment, when it comes to recognizing whether or not our equipment's being used properly and operated efficiently. All of those things were things that when I was at this symposium, I learned that I did not know before. And so that was the sole purpose of my trip, was to go and learn about what types of equipment can be used, the proper maintenance and usage of equipment. How long should equipment actually last? And there's so many different types of equipment that we use in the highway department. Some of them last 14,000 hours, and some of them, because of the abuse that they take, might only last 2,000 hours. And so when we're making decisions as far as whether or not to purchase new equipment, have we reached the end of this equipment's useful life, or does this equipment have another 10,000 hours of useful life? And I think that I got a better grip on how to make those decisions and whether or not we should be purchasing new equipment, and at what time during the equipment's lifespan should we be purchasing this new equipment. So I just thought that I should give a better explanation of why I went to this symposium. Some people were concerned that because it was a Caterpillar-sponsored symposium, that would in some way or another affect my vote on whether or not we were purchasing Caterpillar equipment or Kubota equipment or John Deere equipment or whatever. And no, it won't. That was not the purpose of my trip there. The purpose of my trip there was what I just explained, to learn more about the equipment and its capacity and what it's supposed to do and how it's supposed to be used.
Thanks, Mark. I will say, you want to speak? Mark, thanks for bringing that forward, because me and Mark had had the discussion. We got a concern from a citizen that they felt that there was a conflict of interest. And Mark, I read him the email. We reviewed a lot of this stuff, and I asked Mark if he wanted to give a little more detail. Mark has never, on this subject, deflected it or tried to hide it. He brought up before he even went about the meeting, reported on it when he come back, those type of things. I mean, I think he made a good, honest effort, so I did give you the guy's name on Friday. I don't know if you talked to Toby or not.
Yeah, I did.
Okay, so you've talked to the concerned citizen, the email that I got. As chair, I'm going to read the part that was referenced in the email. But I think if this was an isolated incident, we probably would have did more in-depth investigation, but everything was out in the open. And I don't believe there was any conflict of interest. I believe 2 years ago, Todd, I said Toby, didn't I? One of the deciding factors that changed my mind on that is 2 years ago, you had the exact same thing on the bids. And then this year, the exact same thing. So it's not like one changed from the other. It's just exact same comments were made that you were trying to, the life of the machinery. But I think moving forward, I think as commissioners, we should probably, if something happens, we should bring it up before we go and kind of explain who's all going to be there and just kind of, we just kind of slid into it. And then all of a sudden the rumors start when something happens, and I just felt that it was more or less just deal with it better up front.
Get a little more specific.
Yeah. But I will read item G. It says, no person, from our code of conduct, no person may offer to give a member directly or indirectly, and no member may solicit or accept from any person directly or indirectly anything of value if it could reasonably be expected to influence the member's vote or official actions or judgment. And that was with the reference from the email that I'd gotten back from, but I think we dealt with. Do we have any comments from other commissioners?
Yes.
Ms. Hadcock?
So, it's the perception more, Mark. I believe you went for the education, and I'll say that with, I truly believe that. But I think the perception is not going to be that. And so when you go to Butler Cat and you believe the minute you start saying how great it is compared to another company, even if your intent is because you truly believe that and you're not trying to be wrong, the perception is that guy, if it's a different company, went to their symposium and paid for their meals, lodging, conference fees. And again, I don't think that was your intention.
Right.
But I think as a county commissioner, you voting on that, they're going to call you out on that. And I don't know if that would cause us anything later, but I don't know. The other thing is why I'm saying that, it was really weird. Dark money came up last night, and it was big corporations paying for politicians' travel, lodging, and meals. And that's why I'm saying it's going to be a perception. And you have to deal with that, and I understand that, because I truly believe, and I'll keep saying this, I'm not picking on you, I'm just saying that when somebody pays, and now you've learned, you don't want to have people from other companies pay for your stuff as a politician. If you want to go to something, come here and ask us, because I think, in my case, I would have voted for you to go there, because you have been looking this up and doing this work for a while with the highway department. So bottom line is, the solution would be next time this happens, so there is no perception that you wanted to go to learn something. I just went to a symposium on industry and military stuff, $20. So that was something done in Rapid City, but we don't really deal with some of that stuff. So long story short, solution, ask us the next time.
Mr. Chair.
Is there any other comments?
I just have one. I too am not overly concerned about this. Mark has shown more interest than me for sure, and probably most of the board on specifications and whatever when we have bids on some of this equipment. So I guess the more he found out, the better off we are, and you have to trust that he did it for good purposes, and I do. So
Thanks, Ron.
Mr.
Just one last comment to touch on what Deb says. Now that this has been brought up and brought to my attention, obviously, when we do make decisions in the future, my decisions are going to be based on the facts, the fact of whether or not, how long warranties last, the bid that comes in, is going to be based on what's best for the county. It's not going to be based on whether or not Butler took me to Peoria. And I think I showed that in the last vote that we made on some graders that were asked for. And like all of you have said, I've been looking at all of this, and I want to be able to make good decisions. These highway is one of our biggest costs, and I want to be able to make the right decision as far as what equipment we're buying for the highway department with the taxpayers' money, and whether or not we're getting the biggest bang for our buck. And that's always going to be what my decision is based on, if we're getting the biggest bang for our buck. And that doesn't always necessarily mean that a bid comes in lower than another bid.
No.
It's going to be based on whether or not, in the long run, and a good example would be when Tom came and asked for some pickups. And he didn't want to ask us for diesel pickups because he didn't think we'd let him have diesel pickups because they were more expensive. But then once we researched those diesel pickups, we found out in the long run, they were going to save the county money. That's how I'm going to base my vote. So thanks for all your support, you guys.
I don't think there's no motions. That was just a report so thanks. So we'll move right along to quarterly meetings with the County and Forest Service Commission, Commissioner Croy again. I was contacted by Scott Guffey about starting up the quarterly meetings with the Forest Board on a basis to get more informed, to help us out and with leadership. And I suggested that'd be a good idea. Actually, I think they said monthly. I said quarterly is better. So when you start getting into these meetings, so I think it's worth trying. I talked to Ms. Troutman at our last forestry board meeting, and she remembers that we used to do this at one time quite a while ago, or maybe informally. She'd mentioned. So I guess I'm just looking for the approval of the board to have leadership, commission leadership, to start these quarterly meetings.
I would agree with that.
You need a motion? There you go.
Moved by DeSanto, second by Buschrood. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Any committee reports?
Just one for me.
Ms. Hadcock?
Went to the symposium with military and industry, learned a lot about the future of the B1 and B21. That was pretty interesting. Learned how many students we have at South Dakota Tech and WGT, which is about 3,000, maybe 700 between the two schools. That's huge for our industry, for a lot of things that's moving forward. Heard from the Secretary of, I think, the Air Force, he was called, and he was talking about how they're doing planning for the future, and they're doing master plans that they never did before, which is huge because we do that at the county, and we have learned that works best for what's happening. $33 billion a year is spent on redoing many bases and things, and billions of dollars besides that are put into these bases for other things. So we are one of the top 3 bases. It sounds like we continue to have the B1. The B21 has not been secured at any base at this point, but we are trying to do some of that master planning, and hopefully the base will get ahead of that master planning of what it takes to get a B1. I thought that was pretty exciting.
One, you mean?
B21.
B21, sorry. Is that what I just said? Oh, sorry, B1. B21.
Already.
Yes, we have the B1, sorry. The other thing is the National Guard, how much they make a difference for us in Pennington County, our state, and around the nation. It's one of the top National Guards in the nation. We should be pretty proud of that. And the awards and the things that they have got, General Rice has brought to our attention at this symposium is pretty amazing. I knew that because I have friends that have been in there 25 years or more, but it just brings it to light how important they are for Pennington County, Rapid City, and our nation and our state. So it was just awesome to sit there and listen to some of the military people speak and talk about the fallen heroes. They do have the new National Guard Fallen Hero memorial at or on the National Guard camp here, Camp Rapid. And anybody who would like to visit that, they said you can just make an appointment or show your ID at the gate. And I think it's pretty amazing how they have represented their own. So a lot of good things at the symposium and a lot of good things that I knew, but other things I didn't. So I always like going to it, and it was worth every penny, which was $20. So I enjoyed it. So thank you.
Mr. Chair. I attended the extension, 4-H Extension Board meeting last night, and they came in last year at, let's see here, $17,598 under budget, including what expenses they believe they have left for the rest of the year. They're going to be asking, they're going to come and do a presentation for us, I believe, at our November meeting, asking for some additional items that will not utilize that entire amount of money, probably more like about $6,800 of that $17,000 to do some upgrades to the building. A couple of those upgrades I feel are upgrades that are very seriously needed and will actually, in the long run, save the county money. And it's in lighting upgrades from the old, I think 1960s fixtures that they have with fluorescent bulbs to new fixtures that will have LED bulbs. And in the long run, as we know, those will wind up saving money in energy costs. They're looking for some ceiling fans because in the large room, there's no method of air movement. They have no air conditioning. And in the summer during the fair, that particular room gets extremely hot. And so it would make it a better area for people to come into for their pie and ice cream and the way that they raise their money and some of their other events that they use that bigger room for. And then they're going to be looking for some new tables and possibly, I think how it was explained was that our laptops, Holly will know, are traded in every 4 years, and that's coming up next summer. And they are looking possibly at maybe getting a new laptop early. So however that works, I don't know. But the 4-H extension is a great way to educate kids on many different areas. And I think it's a great program for our children. It's not just ag. It goes into automotive and the arts, leadership and personal development, physical sciences, plant sciences, technology and engineering. All of these are things that the kids get to participate in and learn about. And I think it's great that we continue to support them. Primarily, they are also supported by SDSU as well. And so, great program, and I think it's been managed well. And I think that many of our youth, currently we have club membership of 491 youth in the club membership, and here in Pennington County, which is the second highest area of anywhere in South Dakota. So they're doing quite well. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. I really have nothing to report. We've had the Community Health Board meeting, the MPO meeting TIF, and I think we had the Big Four meeting, which is pretty much informational throughout the month. And so there's really nothing to successfully report back on. Do you have anything?
Yeah, Deb usurped me a little bit, but I did go to the dedication of the monument at the National Guard, and it was very, very moving. There were survivors from some of the people whose names are on the plaques. Great speeches. General Reich was pretty good. The Lieutenant Governor, Matt Michaels, was absolutely wonderful.
Funny. Yep.
It was the speech should be printed in the paper and everybody read it because he was great. And it was very dramatic and very enlightening. And if you get a chance, go out and look at it because it's very, very nice. Very nicely done. That's about it.
Thanks, Ron. Next, we have approval of the vouchers.
So moved.
Moved by Hadcock,
Second.
seconded by Buschard. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Nay. Motion carries with 1 no from Mr. DeSanto. PJ, this is what happens when you drug us out so long last meeting. We made you wait. We thought we'd get to you right at 10:30 and next we have item 16 is items from planning and zoning, the consent agenda.
Mr. Chair, if it's okay, just a little attitude about our comp plan.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yes, if you could.
They're putting the screen down. The public draft of the comprehensive plan is available on the View to 2040 website. We have little cards that we've been passing out. It's been up there for probably a month or so. The website's been live for over a year. This is the public's opportunity before the first hearing at the Planning Commission level to view the document and then to make comments. There's links on the website where they can do this. The first public hearing is tentatively scheduled for January 28th, 2019. That's working around planning department's schedule, holidays, and then also Matrix's schedule because they're contractually obligated to be here for the first one.
Okay.
So we're just letting the public know as much as we can. We've got those business cards out. We've put it in the newspaper at least once. It'll be in there one more time. These are not the official notifications of hearing, though. These are just all in addition.
Okay.
Chairman, I have one thing about that.
Ms. Hancock?
So PJ, I've had a request, which I believe is a good request, to make 2 copies, paper copies, so if someone comes in, they can look at it. So if we could have 2 paper copies up there for the public, that way if one person came in at the same time, that if we could, if that was okay.
Yeah, we actually are supposed to be getting those in this week. There's been a couple of requests for those. The paper copies that we have are the old version, and they take a lot of time and expense to produce. And Matrix is sending those. They should be here this week. They're sending us 15 copies. So be for the board and also for the planning commission, and then we'll have an extra copy for the front counter too, actually.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
we've allotted for those. They're just not here yet.
People have been calling me if you could do that, and I just thought it'd be okay to bring up with the board.
Yeah, paper
that people want to see those paper copies instead of online.
Yeah, paper copies for viewing, but if we'd have to charge them if they want to print it.
Yes, that's,
So
108 pages.
$180.
January 28th is?
January 28th is the second meeting for the planning commission in January. That's
Okay.
what we're looking at.
Okay,
The only thing I think that would stop it would be weather.
okay.
So thank you for that time.
You bet.
Thank you, PJ.
Okay. Consent item, sir?
Yes, sir.
Okay. The Board of Commissioners uses the consent agenda to act on non-controversial and routine planning and zoning items quickly. The consent agenda is acted upon by one motion and vote of the board. Items may be removed from the consent agenda and placed on a regular agenda at the request of a board member or a citizen. The consent agenda for planning and zoning contains the following items. Item A, Major Plan Unit Development Amendment Review 1707 for Donna and Lyle Hartshorn, and approval has been recommended. Item B, second reading of Major Plan Unit Development Amendment 1806 for Catherine Sopinski. Rob Livingston is the agent, and the board approved the first reading on September 18th, 2018.
Thank you, PJ. Is there any member of the public like anything from the consent agenda pulled?
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Eric Nyberg. I'm an attorney representing the Homeowners Association Reserve at Remington Ranch. I have several homeowners here looking to speak on behalf of item 16B. We certainly feel that it is quite controversial and
Okay,
non-routine.
you want item
so we'd like to
16B pulled?
Yes.
We'll pull it and then you.
Thank you.
Sorry. So is any member from the commission would like any, one of the other ones pulled?
A.
This is what I'll do. Okay, we're pulling both. Item A and B, so it's no longer the consent agenda.
It's apparently not.
Okay, well, so we'll start with, oh, there's nothing to approve,
You have to
so
vote on that to move them? No?
there's nothing to approve, so we just go into doing them. I think that's the first time that's happened.
I've never had it happen either, so I
You
don't know.
move to pull them off?
Or a move to pull.
I'm wondering, do you have to move to pull them off? I've never had it happen to pull them
I
both
think
off.
we should, just to be safe.
Because you're pulling all of them off.
So I need a motion to approve, to pull item A and B from the consent agenda.
So moved. Second.
Moved by DeSanto, seconded by Busker. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously.
Perfect.
Okay, item A.
Item A is Major Plan Unit Development Amendment Review 1707 for Donna and Lyle Hartshorn to review an existing plan unit development to allow resort development and events and to allow a farmer's market to include a maximum of 60 vendors on the subject property.
This one was pulled from Mr. Busker.
I don't have much, I just, on condition 12, I want underlined, the temporary structures such as tents only be erected when needed and not on a permanent basis. Make sure they know that. So we don't have to go through that again.
Mr.
Thank you, Ron.
PJ.
Commissioner Busker, she's well aware of that. If you in your staff reports, you'll see the pictures of the permanent structures she's put in place of the tents.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Motion to approve item A?
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve item A. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item B.
Item B is second reading of Major Plan Unit Development Amendment 1806 for Catherine Sopinski. Rob Livingston is the agent to amend an existing plan unit development to allow a single-family residence to be used as a vacation home rental on the subject property.
Sir, now's your time. I know once you get started, it's hard to stop. That's why I had to kind of.
No, thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Commissioners. I thank you guys for your service and for your time this morning. I apologize. I was absent from the first reading on this matter on September 18th. Residents of this neighborhood gave me a call after that meeting, and I'll have to be frank with you. They felt that their voices were not being heard by these commissioners. These individuals are extremely concerned about the well-being of their neighborhood. So I'm here today to talk about the property rights in which they have on their property. I'll be talking about some violations that have occurred previously on the applicant's property. And I'd also like to go through the ordinances that should help you provide, that should provide to you a guideline for which you should look at this application. I know very frequently you guys have discussed conditional use permits for vacation home rentals in Pennington County. As you may be aware, this request is very much so different from a conditional use permit for a vacation home rental. Here today, we are discussing a major amendment to a planned unit development. Now, it's important to note there are major amendments and there are minor amendments. The amendment before you today is to change a use to a property within a planned unit development. Therefore, this is a major amendment. Now, talking about how we got here today, on July 9th, there was a complaint sent into the planning department that the applicant's property was operating out of ordinance, Pennington County ordinance. Thereafter, in August, the applicant filed an application to amend this planned unit development. There was very little, if any, communication with the neighbors in this development before the applicant went ahead and filed the application with the planning department. On September 10th, 2010, the planning commissioners met and reviewed this matter. It was quite the lengthy discussion. Again, I was not there for that one, but I listened to about all 2 hours of it on the internet. These neighbors that are here for you today gave some amazing testimony in opposition of this proposed amendment. The planning commissioners voted 3-3. They essentially gave no recommendation. Although I would submit to you, if it was their decision, they would need more than a 3-3 threshold in order to approve of this, and it would have failed. Again, lots of lengthy discussion. I'd like to cite Commissioner Sandra Rundry's quote, and she said, "Whenever a person buys or builds, they should be aware of the conditions under which they are buying or building their home." That is exactly the issue in which we are dealing with here today. These individuals behind me knew what they were getting into when they purchased property into this planned unit development. They knew the rules. Unfortunately, the applicant in this matter did not, which is why she operated a vacation home rental out of compliance with ordinance and is looking to change the planned unit development. These planned unit developments, I understand, they are very confusing. Therefore, I'd like to go through some of the ordinances specifically to kind of give you the framework for what you need to analyze when looking at this request. Fortunately, Section 213A1 of Pennington County Planning and Zoning Ordinance gives us a very good look at what a purpose of a PUD is. Specifically, the PUD ordinance states, the purpose of a PUD is to produce desirable residential developments. Desirable residential developments. This amendment does not produce a desirable residential development in the eyes of these residents. Sorry. The neighbor next door, Carol Quam, has serious issues and has had serious issues with what she believes with vacation home renters coming onto her property, possibly vandalizing a portion of her property, and she is extremely concerned about the process going forward if this amendment were to be approved. I continue on in the ordinances, Section 213C5. Any change in the use of any property in a planned unit development will be subject to the procedures applicable to the initial approval of the development. What does this mean? Simply put, a change to one property in a planned unit development is a change to all of the planned unit development. If you were to approve of this application, you could possibly open up the floodgates, setting a dangerous precedent, asking the next person in the planned unit development to come forward and seek a change as well. Section 213B1, quote, property and buildings in a planned unit development are to be planned and organized as a single entity and as one complex land use unit rather than a group of individual buildings located on separate lots. A single entity, one complex land unit. This again goes to the very heart of why we have planned unit development. It is to ensure the continuity of the neighborhood. These neighbors, they want to know their neighbors. The PUD is there for a reason. I understand conditional use permits can allow vacation home rentals. Other zoning ordinances allow vacation home rentals. And yes, it's true that some PUDs do also allow vacation home rentals. However, this PUD does not allow vacation home rentals, which is why the applicant was operating in violation of the ordinance. Now, what should you be looking at in analyzing whether you want to approve of this amendment or not? Again, 213C4. There's certain criteria that are set forth for you. I believe there's 7 or 8 items. And the statute says you must be satisfied with the site plan for the PUD has met each of the following criteria, or you can demonstrate that one or more of them are not applicable. Some of them are simply not applicable, and I won't touch on those, and I'll try to cruise along.
So you're going to continue to go through everything that we've had on our agenda?
I'm just speaking
The
to
reason why I'm going to say something is because the applicant requested if something like this happened, they couldn't be here and they'd like to be here. And so I hate to disrupt you and let you keep going on if at the end, this is going to be continued.
You want it continued? Okay.
Yeah,
I
and
mean,
with all due respect, I know these
because
neighbors have been dealing with this
you're
for a
dealing with
couple
a lot of
months
the
now.
stuff that you're talking on the planning department that we could read through and read through. I
Okay,
mean,
and I can move on and move on from the ordinances if you would like me to maybe conclude quickly. Is that okay?
So Chairman, here's the bottom line, sir. If we continue this, then you'd have to repeat all this again. So is it the desire of the commission to continue? Because if it is, then,
you wanted to at least be on the phone conference or something, but I think that I don't think the expectation was this, because since it was on the consent agenda. So I would probably,
I'll make a motion to continue.
yeah,
The motion is to allow me to continue speaking.
no, to continue to the
Next meeting. That,
Continue this.
that way you have both sides, sir, here.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And if I could, just real quickly, with all due respect, these residents of the association paid me to come here today, and it's obviously expensive for them, and I sat here through this meeting. They were here on September 10th. They were here on September 18th. They've written letters into this commission, and many of them have taken off work here today. The agenda items were clearly set forth. I know it's very evident that one can be pulled from the consent agenda to the regular agenda. So I would submit to you that it was very clear that this was being discussed today, and if the applicant felt she needed to be here, she should have been.
Duly noted. I mean, it's,
So bottom line
but
is,
applicants do have
Right.
the opportunity to have a fair, if it was on the consent agenda, it was a,
so my
Go ahead,
point
Sam.
would be that if you stayed here and spent more time and went through it, that'd be up to them, but you're paying your lawyer. Or do you want to pay him again to come to the next time? Okay, that's what we're saying.
okay. Let,
We didn't know, sir. We didn't know you had a lawyer. Sir, we didn't know you had a lawyer representing you today.
let's not get this going from the audience and back and forth. I mean, that's the fact of what's going on.
Motion on the floor.
And
And
I
there
would,
is a motion on the floor to continue to the next meeting, and there was a second. So that's what's on the floor right now for discussion.
yeah,
So-
and I understand, yeah, and I would just strictly say that, you guys set forth the rules in which you guys abide by these meetings, and it's quite evident in the agenda. It says, any item can be removed at any time from the request of a citizen. And I think if we were here working the other way, and maybe we had a 5-0 approval at the last meeting, it's not over. We have first and second readings for a meeting, and I think it takes a lot of effort to change a PUD, and I think that's kind of what I was speaking to. And if you're going to do that, I think you should really be at a meeting in order to speak for it. There's a lot of people here to speak on this item because they thought that this item would be decided today.
Yes. And I just interrupted just to explain what could
Yes,
happen.
yes, very good.
And you can see what happened is that the commission, it hasn't been voted on yet, but now there is a motion for a continuance. Mr.
Mr.
Busker,
Well, I agree, we need to give the applicant opportunity, but I guess, if they want to continue today, I'll listen to them, but I'm not going to listen to you to do the same thing again next time. I mean, you get one shot at it, and you're going to have your shot today, or you're going to have your shot next meeting. I don't care which it is, but I guarantee, I think the applicant he'll have a chance next meeting, but then you're going to be done, We're not going to sit and listen to the same argument. I'm sure you got an hour's worth of stuff here. How many times are we going to hear it?
Yeah, and I certainly understand and respect that, Commissioner. With all due respect, the applicant was at the Planning Commission meeting on September 10th and the meeting on the September 18th in front of you as well. So the applicant has also been heard twice too, so.
well,
Chairman, one point. I did tell the applicant to come because it's not cut and dry. So, I said, just because you're on the consent agenda, bottom line is, then if we listen to you, we can make a decision today too. So if that's where we're going.
And I don't know if this helps out at all. I personally probably only have 5 minutes left. These guys I know maybe have quite a bit lengthier discussion, but for me personally, just so you're aware,
I'm good either way, but I just thought it would be what you wanted, and if you don't want it,
The only reason I bring that up is because there was a phone call made, and the person had a family matter that we were leaving town for, and if there was any problems, we could call them and contact them on phone, try to, but we're 11:15. I think it was before 11 or something along those lines. But I'm just passing on what was passed on to me. That's why I kind of stopped you. I thought if this is going to get continued, we should hear the whole thing then, or otherwise, if we go through this whole thing in 2 weeks, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
We're going to
and
be
I
hearing it
understand,
3
and-
times. And Mr. Busker just said, we don't really want to get into that because guarantee you after about 3 minutes of your speech, you lost everybody. I mean, that's how it is when anybody gives a speech. It's the very end they catch and the very beginning, and everything in between becomes immaterial. Just,
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Sandro.
I think what the chair and Commissioner Buskerud and Commissioner Hadcock are just suggesting to you is that if you give us your presentation today and we continue this, that your presentation will not be fresh in our mind at the next meeting when the applicant is here to present his side of the case, and that would not be fair to you or you. We would want your presentation to be fresh in our mind. Not only that, but then we can have rebuttals from the applicant and responses from the opponents at the same time. It would help us to make a better decision.
Exactly.
well said.
Yeah, exactly.
And like I said, I certainly understand with that. Understand that, Mr. Commissioner. It is my desire not to continue this.
Okay.
This has been going on for 2 months now. These individuals have had serious issues at their homes. I can speak to that, but I know there's also a motion on the floor. But they are here. She has been heard, and she had the legal opportunity to be heard today and had proper notice of this hearing.
Okay, motion on the floor is for continuance. We've tried to explain it, and apparently it's not going through. So if the residents would like to speak, they need to come up and they need to speak addressed on the continuance motion, not on, okay.
Lloyd, you're supposed to make a motion, you need a motion on the floor on a continuance. There's no speaking
There
on
was a
continuance.
motion,
But did we all
Continue to the
agree?
16th?
it was made by
On it yet?
Mark and seconded by you, I think, on,
And did we follow through on that motion?
No.
You have
Sir?
not voted on it yet.
That's what I'm
Voted on it
saying.
yet?
well, that's because it's still in discussion. When you make a motion second, then there's discussion whether to continue or not.
Yeah, you're not supposed to make discussion on continuance, but it's all good. We always do.
Oh, now I know what you're saying. No discussion on continuance motions.
You're okay. We break the rules sometimes because we're trying to help people. You're okay, sir. You decide. You're our chair.
Well, these people are here, so but we are going to stick to the continuance motion,
Certainly.
please.
My name's Eric Lind. I'm a resident in the reserve at Remington Ranch. Specifically regarding the continuance, our lawyer came from Sioux Falls specifically for this meeting. I can't speak to his schedule. However, being a busy man, I'm sure, I don't know if he can come back in a week at the commission's recommendation.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Eric.
Thank you, Eric.
We can hear you a lot better when it's not from the far.
Chris Cutler, I'm actually the president of the Homeowners Association. I guess I would just like to display my, or portray my displeasure, that I'm upset that it was obviously known that if this did come up, there would be a continuance, and we took on the expense of bringing our attorney out, and now you're asking us to bring on the expense of bringing our attorney out again. I guess I'm disappointed that there wasn't a mechanism to take it off the consent agenda and move it prior to us all showing up and spending our time and our resources here today, which, by the way, our HOA does not have unlimited resources. So I'm disappointed that we're doing this continuance and you're putting the burden on us to have to pay our attorney to come again.
Thanks, Chris.
Jim Campbell, same operation with the same community. I am just befuddled by how you guys come up and ignore the letters that were written in opposition for this lady to come out. She should have sold the property and bought a rental unit where they have communities where there's rental units. But she knows, she wants to change it all around, wants to have her be special, and her people have caused problems in the community and upset the whole community from where we used to be a little laid-back type
Hey,
of thing.
Jim,
But the
we are
point
talking about the
becomes,
continuation motion. Let's not get it, if we get
Lloyd, I
past,
still understand, but this is, I don't know why you guys are going out of your way for this person from Omaha, where we're Pennington County residents, and you're blowing us off. That's all,
no,
Lloyd.
nobody's blowing anybody off. We're trying to make a fair for both sides. So the motion on the floor, folks, in light of the new information, the information of that they'd hired an attorney from Sioux Falls to come here, does that make a difference on that? Nobody mentioned that prior to the motion on the floor.
It does to me, Mr. Chairman, that we should give him his chance to, he said he had 5 minutes left, we should give him his chance. I don't believe they should have to bring him out. And by the way, no, we didn't know you had an attorney. No, we didn't know he was from Sioux Falls. No, we didn't know any of that.
No.
We're doing it the same way we do it all the time. Sorry. I would give him a chance to finish if it was up to me.
I agree.
And then they don't have to bring him back. But I agree with Commissioner DeSanto. You better write down your speech because by next week, we'll have forgotten it. Or at least forgotten the general gist of it. But, you know, that's up to you.
So we can
That's, and it's not up to me.
let him speak and then.
Well, we kind of interrupted him right in his spot, so he doesn't even know where he left off, but, well, maybe he does.
So Chairman, we're
So
going.
Chris, hold on.
I'll just come up here and say, it seems to me this is kind of a foregone conclusion that we're gonna table this until the next meeting, so I don't know that there's a whole lot to discuss. We'll have to decide whether we want to pay our attorney to come back or not. You guys have made it pretty clear that he can finish his presentation, but it won't be front of mind, so it won't really do a whole lot of good. So,
I wrote it down.
what's that?
I wrote it down. It's clear.
Sir, is there any, I'm going to give you the final words. Do you have any final?
There's still a motion. Point of order, Chair.
Clarification. What do you?
What are we doing? So are we going to make a
We were
motion?
just discussing,
There's still a motion on the floor.
yeah, there is. a
That's
motion.
what I'm saying. So,
The discussion was, we were just, between ourselves, sidebarring of letting him finish his speech.
okay, but
So-
we don't need a motion,
I
Chairman?
need to withdraw my motion.
Okay, that's what I'm saying. I'll withdraw my
And
second.
then
Actually,
Chris,
you were the first one. You made
I
the
would,
motion.
okay, I'll withdraw my motion and then,
That's okay with the seconder.
okay, thank
okay,
you.
so,
That's what I'm saying.
okay.
Thank you, Commissioners. I appreciate it. And I think some of what I'm kind of going to hit on next may actually be relevant for the topic on the continuance itself. And that goes back to the issues that these neighbors have had with the neighboring property owner. Again, she has consistently operated out of compliance with Pennington County ordinance. Currently, right now, if you were to go to this website, it's listed as sleeping 12 people. Per the vacation home rental ordinance, Pennington County ordinance, it's only allowed to sleep 10. This is a concern. It's immediate concern of these residents. These people believe that there's been occupancy of an RV on this property. That's a violation of the vacation home residence ordinance in Pennington County. Garbage removal, there's been an issue with that. Vacation home rentals are supposed to adhere to South Dakota administrative rules. It's supposed to be emptied at least twice weekly. That is another issue. These are issues that these individuals have been consistently dealing with for an extended period of time. And they have put a lot of effort into keeping this process from going forward. And it's going to be continued to go forward another week here. And that's something that they do not want. These individuals live in Pennington County. They work in Pennington County. They vote in Pennington County. They're good citizens and they want their voices heard. And they want their voices heard today. And they went through the right procedures in order to do that. I am a young attorney, but I have listened to a lot of county commission meetings. I've listened to a lot of city county meetings, and the organization amongst these homeowners in opposition to this is truly amazing, and I don't see that very often. They're truly, almost begging you to keep their neighborhood the way it is, and to deny the applicant the process of amending this plan unit development and changing their neighborhood forever. I'm open to any questions too, and I don't know if we're able to let them speak today too. I think they're doing everything they can because they do not want this in their neighborhood. So if they'd like to speak today, they've sat through hours of this meeting as well too. So.
Mr. Chair.
Right now, there is no motion on the floor anymore. Let's go to Mr. DeSanto, and then I'll go to Ms.
Sir.
Hancock.
This, if this permit is issued, it would be in effect for a year and would be reviewed after a year, depending upon a complaint basis, whether or not it would be renewed at that point in time. Right now, as of today, a lot of the things that you're talking about, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, PJ or Jay, are civil issues. They're not ordinance issues. They may be homeowners association issues. Those are not county issues. Those are homeowners association issues, and up to you or the homeowners association to enforce through a civil action. So I guess what I want to ask you is, how many complaints have been lodged against this particular vacation rental owner, PJ, that are applicable to an ordinance that the commission can make a decision on?
Cassie Bolstead, Assistant Planning Director. We received one written complaint, and that's what spurred this whole process.
And that complaint was in reference to what?
To the vacation home rental being operated.
So, non-compliance of our vacation home rental ordinance.
Yep, a vacation home rental being operated outside of the allowed uses in the PUD.
Okay. In most cases, when a complaint is lodged or brought forward, the person that's in violation of that ordinance is given a chance to correct their violation. They may have to pay a fine, what have you, but they're given a chance to correct their violation. From what I'm seeing, this particular applicant, through this process right now, that's what they're doing. They're trying to address their violation of the one ordinance that we can enforce. So I just want you guys to understand where our limitations are.
And I understand, Commissioner. I think the issue that these homeowners have is that she has not attempted to go straight to them and work with them. I think that's where the real problem lies. And I think if you were to deny this PUD amendment, that would force her to do that and make her work with them. These are not unreasonable people. They are willing to work with her. And I was up at the properties last evening, and it really struck me that these this neighborhood, it's so clear. The intent is not for vacation home rentals. You can tell these are very nice homes that people have lived in a long time, and it's just not the intent. And it shouldn't be on the burden shouldn't be on these homeowners to have to report all these citations and issues they're having all the time with the commission.
Can I clarify something or ask a
We're
question?
up to, this is like the third time. We can't be going back and forth. There is no motion on the floor right now.
Right.
So now this opens it right back up to open discussion. So I think.
Which I'm okay with.
Yes, so what I am going to do, instead of this going back and forth, these homeowners want to express their feelings. This will be your.
That's fine.
This will be yours, and then we'll go on down the line. Instead of, I stopped at continuation, so it's open. You can express exactly how you feel. Once we took that motion off the floor, the continuation, it's open. So this commission could all of a sudden decide to move for approval or denial or continuation. So it's open. So what I'll do is each one of you are going to have your time to say something. Would this commission like to take a little break before this starts so they can get organized and we could be
I don't
refreshed?
know that
I'm asking the board right now.
I'd like 3 minutes.
Depends on, are you going to let them talk?
I think we
I
take
can't
5 minutes.
control,
You can.
we can do a 3-minute.
I mean, I don't care, but.
Let's take 5 minutes,
I'll take
guys,
5
so
minutes,
this
all right.
doesn't get
So
5 minutes break.
I just think that gives you guys a chance to talk. That gives us a chance to
Jill.
get some fresh air.
So moved by Hadcock, seconded by.
Busker to take a 5-minute break. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, we're coming out of a short recess. As I stated earlier, we no longer have a motion on the floor. So what this does is open it back up for discussion. And so we've heard from the attorney, and we'll go through the residents one by one.
Chris Cutler. Let me go through this a second and figure out which points I actually want to make and which ones I will spare you from.
And Chris, I don't mean to interrupt. I just want to say for the record that all the letters have been received and are in our packets.
Okay.
So I just wanted to reiterate to the people, there was a comment that we haven't read them or something along those lines, but it's all part of the information.
Actually, in the packet that I looked at the other day, there are still a few letters missing. Qualms isn't in there, and a couple others that I know of. But
Okay.
The intent of our PUD is clear. You received a letter from Dan Crow, the original developer, indicating the intent of the PUD when he set it up. Dan wrote, quote, "Accordingly, on behalf of the homeowners in the reserve at Remington Ranch, and for all other communities in Pennington County established under existing zoning at the time of plat and zoning, the development under properly filed and approved PUD, I implore you to resist the temptation to permit a modification of the founding documents of the community to permit commercialization or any other use in the community not originally contemplated when originally approved by the county." The other thing other point I would make on the PUD is that the PUD dates back to 1982, and we have peaceably lived under that for the last 36 years. The wishes of those affected, just to go over the letters a second, I'm not going to go over what's in them, but so that you understand what they represent. You got 12 letters opposing, which includes qualms. Those letters represent everyone who lives there year-round. The Qualms, Cutler, Isaacson, Vidal, Lind, and Campbell. In addition, there was a second letter from my wife, another Cutler. You also got a letter from the developer, as well as 2 non-permanent resident owners, Pavlik, who's currently building a home, and Urardi, who has an undeveloped lot, as well as Eric Nyberg, our attorney on behalf of the HOA. You got 2 letters in support. One was from Souter. He owns an undeveloped lot in the reserve. This letter isn't even a letter to the Board of Commissioners. It's an email from Tim Souter to Rob Livingston that Rob Livingston forwarded to Cassie and asked to have it added to the file. They admitted they don't actually live in the reserve but plan to build in the future. After their testimony last meeting in support of the amendment, it seems to me that one of two things is going on here. Either they are very positive and supportive of VHR, but they want to live in an area that doesn't allow VHR, or they're waiting for this amendment to pass so they can come petition an amendment for themselves to potentially do VHR. The other letter is from Daryl Licht. Daryl lives in Happy Trails and not in the reserve. A couple of things that Daryl cited is that there seems to be multiple letters from one family trying to tip the scales in opposition. I have to assume that means the Cutlers, my family. There are 3 letters from the Cutlers. However, the Cutlers also own 3 homes in the development. Daryl is the one trying to tip the scale with his letters when he doesn't even live in the development and has no skin in the game. Cassie indicated on the 18th at the meeting that both Souter letter and the Lick letter were delivered by Rob Livingston, not the authors of the letters. Once again, who's trying to tip the scales. A few additional considerations. At the September 10th Planning Commission meeting, Michelle Hoffman, attorney for the county at the Planning and Zoning Commission hearing, stated that the intent of the PUD does matter. Rich Marsh, Planning Commissioner, stated at the same meeting, the PUD is the protection of the neighborhood. The intent of the PUD defines the neighborhood. How can you succeed from the intent of a development? Catherine Johnson, Planning Commissioner, stated at the same meeting, the PUD is in place and does not allow for VHR, and VHR is not in harmony with the development. It's not appropriate to upset the expectations of the majority by allowing a change to one lot. She also voiced a concern for precedent and how it would affect future PUD amendments. The Planning Commission actually did offer some guidance to you. By voting 3-3, the amendment would have failed if they were the final decider. The September 18th Board of Commissioner meetings to address a few comments that you guys made. Commissioner Buskerud, did I pronounce your name correctly? Buskerud, is that how you say it? Okay. You stated that we should put up a gate, and then we would have a gated community. You also stated that a gate would be very expensive. I agree that it may very well be a way to mitigate the effects if you should pass the amendment. However, because of the locations of Kathy's driveway, you would actually need 2 gates. Also, why not make it the 16th condition that Kathy build the gates subject to architectural standards of the development, approval by the Architectural Review Committee, which approval shall not be reasonably withheld. Kathy is the one who has the funding source, not the HOA. Commissioner Hadcock, you cited the proximity of the hotel and the cabins. The hotel pre-existed the PUD in the purchase of the home by Kathy's mother. The submitter of the PUD, Dan Crow, and the commission at the time knew about the existence of the hotel and approved the PUD. Also, Kathy's mother knew she was purchasing a home next to the hotel. The cabins, they pre-existed Kathy taking over ownership. Kathy knew she was keeping a home that was next to a hotel that had built some cabins. You also stated that things will be pretty well covered when you have DNR and other state agencies regulating. They're already in violation of those. Commissioner LaCroix, you stated property owners' rights. By passing this, you're granting a right that doesn't currently exist to one, and repealing a right that does exist for 27 others, 10 of whom have written letters in opposition, 1 in support. You also stated the fact that it's more high-end renters. I'm not sure exactly what that means, but if you're saying high-end renters don't cause problems, that statement simply isn't true. We have had problems with Kathy's since Kathy started VHR. Increased traffic, trespassing, vandalism, what I would consider harassment to one of my daughters twice, being yelled at by a guest and flipped off, an increased garbage located at Kathy's driveway and road, and camping in Kathy's driveway. Finally, you stated that there had to be a line somewhere. You actually agreed with the opposition, us. So why move that line that was created by a PUD that was well aware of the fact it bordered highway services zoning and the existence of the hotel at the time it was submitted and approved. You also started to say that maybe if there is a way to stop it here. The council does not have a solution to this if the toothpaste is let out of the tube and the amendment is approved. The precedents will be set, and over time, the makeup of this council will change. Finally, I plead to you, please don't do this. It is obvious and clear that the people who are directly affected don't want it. The hotel and cabins existed before Kathy took ownership of her home. She didn't start VHR until after owning the home for 3 years, knowing it was against the intent of the development, which has peaceably existed under the original intent for 36 years. I don't understand affording a new right to one at the expense of 27 others. I might also add that currently you are in a unique position to be able to change course and put the toothpaste back in the tube by voting to deny this amendment.
Thanks,
Any
Chris.
questions?
Eric Lind again, homeowner in the reserve at Remington Ranch.
I didn't catch the first.
Eric Lind.
Eric, okay.
And I would just like to state my vehement opposition to this change. I believe that the boundaries of the reserve at Remington Ranch should remain the same. I believe that the applicant knew that when she began to break the rules by having a vacation home rental where it was not allowed. And I think that it's disingenuous to say that she was unaware of that. I think that for any of you who have visited that site, if you know where the boundaries are, it is clearly a development unit. It's difficult to separate, especially when her road is owned by the homeowners association. We're responsible for the maintenance and repair of it, and our insurance costs will be directly affected or could be directly affected by that. So I would implore you to please vote against this. Thank you.
Thanks, Eric. I appreciate you. It's I know it's emotional, and we
Well,
understand.
it is very emotional. This is my home. You guys don't have rentals next to you guys, do you?
Yeah.
You do have? And you have them in your backyard and having fun with them and doing all this stuff. But
Okay.
it's a
Okay.
pain. And
You
here
need to-
I
You
sit.
need to start out with your name, and
We did it before, didn't we, Jim Campbell?
we got to do it each time.
Yeah, I live in a subdivision. Lot 9? Anyway, I have 2 empty lots on either side of me. And you guys are freaking me out. I don't want rentals on either side of my house. The PUD is the muscle in this thing. And if the muscle is loosened and falls apart, then the guy that has the lot next to me, and he voted for Kathy, and he has rentals all over the Black Hills. It's obvious what he's going to do with the lot next to mine. And I understand what Carol Quam is going through because she has taken the brunt of the rental issue. And teenagers come and they try to be good and they try to be good, but teenagers are going to screw up. They're going to cause problems. And the PUD is the muscle in this. And if you guys give her the variance, then anybody else can do that too. And there goes the subdivision. Thank you.
Thanks, Todd. And there was one comment about the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission, it was referenced quite often, they are a recommending body to us. So I just want to clarify the 3-3 vote and some of the comments that are made, they are a recommend body to the commission. So I just wanted to clarify that.
I'm Natalie Cutler. I live at the Reserve at Remington Ranch. Chris is my husband. First of all, I just want to say thank you for all you do. I've never been to a county commission meeting before two weeks ago, and I was totally impressed with how much time you spent on, in particular, 2 Pennington County residents and 2 feet next to a border. I'm just really impressed with how much you care about Pennington County. We purchased our home 20 years ago under this PUD. We knew Dan Crow and we spoke to Dan Crow at that time, and we understood how our neighborhood was developed to be a residential area. And we were first-time homeowners, pregnant with our first child. We purchased a home, we stretched to get into this neighborhood because we understood the PUD to not allow commercial type things. And I understand there's all these definitions and I'm not a lawyer, but commercialism is what we're talking about. And that is what was disallowed in our PUD. And it is still disallowed by our PUD. We are at your mercy. You guys get to make this decision on if you're going to allow a change to the current PUD. And we are begging you to not allow this change because it does affect a lot of things. There are some very emotional things. My husband referred to my daughter, my 15-year-old, at 2 different times with 2 different renters from Kathy's property has had bad experiences. My girls are cross-country runners. There's not a lot of places to run up there. There's one loop. And when you go for a run, you run by the Sapinski house. You can't avoid it. I mean, and she was out for a run. She happened to not have her headphones that day. She had her cell phone in her pocket, and she was listening to the music. She ran by the house twice. The second time, there was people out on the front lawn and the front deck. And to think that this house is isolated, it's just not. She ran right by it the second time, and someone yelled, "Hey!" And so she stopped and thought, oh, they want to know, like, where to go visit, like in the Black Hills. I'll stop and be friendly and tell them about our beautiful hills. And instead, this woman approaches her threateningly, marching towards her, saying, "You need to turn off your music. It's too loud. It's bothering me." And she said to me, she told me again about last night, she said, "Mom, I go by the Lynn's house with my music on and they don't mind. These are 2 different animals. You have residents and you have nightly rentals. And they don't live well together." And the second time she was driving home from work, she came in behind a car. The car stopped, couldn't figure out where they were going, in her opinion. They started to turn left into Happy Trails. And stopped there. So she tried to go around them on their right-hand side. They suddenly realized, oh, we don't want to go to Happy Trails. We're going up to the Sapinski house, and started to pull into her. And as they turned back towards her, they honked at her and flipped her off. And I'm telling you, in 20 years, we haven't had this kind of problem with the hotel. The hotel has its own entrance. They have a big, there's a big natural boundary between where we're driving and running and walking and those green cabins. We can see one of them. We can see the people out there, but it's a big steep hill, lots of grass, lots of trees, and they don't interact with us. But the Sapinski house does. So we're having actual consequences to my kids. I have 2 girls that are minors and they're out running. It's very upsetting to me that you guys, that it's possible to change with apparently a very low bar, it feels like, to change what was originally developed as a neighborhood. It's crazy to me. So I know the power is in your hands. I know you guys can make this decision. And I'm imploring you to please leave our neighborhood the way it was originally intended. To me, that's the legal definition, the legal place we have lived, and our property values are based on it. And our whole lives are based on it. And I'm just begging you for all of these people, these Pennington County residents, to leave it the way it is.
Thank you.
Ron Roskinet, candidate for District 1. I just want to say that it's sad that these folks live in District 1 and they have no representation from District 1.
Thank you, Ron. I think we've heard all the testimony. We've had a motion to continue that was pulled, so that there is no motion on the floor.
I have a motion to continue again to the next meeting.
Pardon me, what was the motion?
To continue to the next meeting, then seconded by Mark. The motion's been made and seconded to continue. Any discussion on well, we're not supposed to discuss. Mr. DeSanto.
I want to give these folks a little bit of my history that applies to what your concerns are. I've lived in 3 different homes since I moved back to Rapid City in 2008. The first one I didn't intend staying in the first place, but then I moved to the valley, and when I moved to the valley, I was surrounded by fields. I'd spoken to the rancher that owned those fields, and he had no intention. It was limited ag. He had no intention of ever developing those fields. Don't know if you've been out to the Big Sky neighborhood lately, up out off of Elkvale Road, but the house that I lived in that was surrounded by fields is now surrounded by apartments, and probably an additional 100 homes. It not only the building of these apartments and the homes not only impeded the beautiful view where I could sit on my back deck and actually look through my telescope and look at George Washington's face on Mount Rushmore, but we also got a lot of element into our neighborhood that we didn't have before because of the apartments, rentals, that probably caused market value to go down, crime to go up. We moved into another neighborhood that was surrounded by fields. We had clear views of everything. Now those fields are being developed, and now there's rentals across the street from me again. So I feel for you. I do. But if we start making decisions based on how the people in the neighborhood feel, then we can stop progress completely. Not just the progress in your neighborhood, but the progress in every neighborhood. So some of you have talked about setting precedents. Well, if we start choosing to deny when somebody asks for a change in a PUD or then we're setting a precedence that, well, when I don't want somebody building an apartment across the street from my house out in the valley, then I can come here and start arguing. They're going to ruin my view. They're going to ruin my neighborhood. They're going to decrease my property values. And say, and you set precedents because you listen to these people up here in Hill City. Why aren't you listening to me? Aren't my needs to have a private place with a beautiful view of Mount Rushmore as important as their need to have the privacy of their neighborhood? So this is a difficult decision, and I think everybody here has been affected by development that they didn't really want. So just to let you know, it's not an easy decision. I don't think it's an easy decision for anybody because I think everybody can feel for what you're going through. But we also have to consider property owner rights, individual property owner rights as well. So.
Thanks, Mark. I gave a little latitude on that one, but we'll do the same thing, Mr. Buskard.
Thank you. As anybody who's been around for a while know, I'm a opponent of vacation home rentals, no matter where they're at. I've lost that battle before many times. Usually, my opinion is that if you don't like what could be built next to your house, you should probably buy that property and then you can control what goes next to your house. But I'm not sure that that's true about in a PUD. I think they've already probably decided what should go next to their house. And I guess just to give them a little encouragement, I've changed my vote before, and I think I'm changing my vote on this one too. So we'll see. I don't know, and I don't know how I'm going to vote on this motion, to be honest with you.
Ms. Hadcock, did you have a comment, or were we going to go to a
I'd like to I always am a person that likes both sides. I always have. So I'd like the other person to be able to counteract or not counteract to make my decision. But I will tell you, I don't follow HOAs, even though I respect people. And PUDs are flexible. Since I've been here, I've seen many things in PUDs. If it's common sense or not, might be common to me, but not to you folks. So I'm willing to listen, and that's why I agree with continuing this motion.
Thank you. My comment is anything that I say will be used against me. So I choose to be quiet. So the motion on the floor, I agree with every one of you. You guys all had good points, is for a continuation. Now, let me explain this. There's 4 commissioners. If it ends up being a 2-2 vote, it gets continued on. If it gets a 3-1 vote, it gets continued on. So either way, it could be continued. I just want to explain that. Now, the continuation vote, because I've had to do this twice now. I'm getting pretty good at this. It'd be the same question at the next meeting. It'd be a continuation vote. If it goes 2-2, it'd be the same motion. I just want to clarify that so everybody here, and I honestly believe we gave each and every one of you more than enough chance, do you feel, to express yourself. And that's the goal of this commission, is to hear your concerns. And I hope you leave here today with that you've been heard. So with that, we are going to go to a roll call vote on the continuation motion.
Buskerud,
Yes.
DeSanto,
Yes.
Hadcock,
Aye.
and LaCroix.
No. I'm just doing that to be honored. So the motion carries. It's a continuation motion to the next meeting, folks. So now is the time that you can send out your additional letters, get them to Holly or whatnot. But I think, thank you for your guys' patience.
Thank you.
PJ.
All right. Excuse me. Regular agenda item C is layout plat 1827 to combine 2 lots in order to create Neiman Trust land tract. The applicant is Paul and Carol Neiman, and the surveyor is Anderson Engineering, and the property is zoned general agriculture. Essentially, this individual bought the subject property and wants to build a house on it. So far, what the applicant has is a conditional use permit to allow a pole barn prior to the house coming on in preparation of building. The property that's outlined in red is what the landowner had purchased years ago. The issue with that is that the DOT was not going to allow access off of 385, which borders the east side of the property. So the applicant went and looked at Custer Gulch Road on the west side, but all the street authorities that he spoke with, nobody was claiming ownership of that. Eventually, after a couple of years, the South Dakota Transportation Commission claimed authority over that road and actually deeded some of the right-of-way over to the applicant so that he could gain access through his lot, since it wasn't going to be allowed off of 385. With that comes this layout plat. That's kind of the history behind of all this. So if you see that lot to the left that has that gray line going through, that's what the South Dakota Transportation Commission has deeded over to the applicant. He's looking now to consolidate these 2 lots into one. There's still a conditional use permit on the property for the pole barn without a primary structure. It's been 2 years. It hasn't been built yet because he wasn't sure what was going on. He couldn't have access to his property. So with that, staff is recommending approval of layout plat 1827 with 12 conditions to consolidate these lots together.
That'd be my motion.
Second.
Moved by Hadcock, and I heard Busker second. Any discussion in public? Commission? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay. Next, D.
Next item is item D, layout plat 1828, to combine 2 lots in order to create lot 1 of Schmidt subdivision. The applicants are Gerald and Judith Schmidt with FMG Surveying as the, FMG Engineering as the surveyor. The properties are zoned general agriculture. There are 2 MS lots that the applicant is looking to combine into one. There's developmental status on them at this time. There is a pole barn that exists on the lot to the south or close to the southeast. What the applicant is looking to do is consolidate these two lots into one. This was routed to the interdepartmental review. One item of note that came back, besides some of the corrections that are needed on the plat, was mainly from the Department of Equalization, that if the word subdivision is used on this plat, the applicant's going to lose their ag status for taxes. So the applicant is aware of that, and they're proposing to change that to Schmidt tract something. So they are aware of that. They were at the Planning Commission when this was brought up and also stated that they will change that. Staff doesn't have any other major concerns about the request, just some minor adjustments they'll need to make to the next step in the process, which is a minor plat. But with the layout plat as it is, staff would recommend approval of layout plat 1828 with 9 conditions.
So moved.
Moved by DeSanto, second by Hadcock. Is there any discussion? Ma'am, are you here for, this is our last item? Okay, just double check.
So Chairman, just
Ms.
one.
Hadcock.
So at the Planning Commission, there was 3 areas that the applicant, I had said, so they understood what was going on, meaning their change, they wouldn't be,
Not using subdivision.
Yeah.
what's that?
Not using subdivision.
Yes, there was like,
The conditional use permit they would require for the pole
Yes.
barn.
and then
didn't go
that they'd
through.
have to call it tract instead of,
Subdivision.
yes. So they were in compliant with understanding those, because sometimes people don't get it and they'll come back later, just so this board understands that they did comply and did understand that. So if they come back later at our equalization hearings, that we're all in the understanding that that was said not only in Planning Commission, but here.
Gotcha.
So we got a motion for approval and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thanks, BJ. Next, we have items from the public. Let me read this, ma'am, before you come up, okay? Public comments, a time for the member of the public to discuss and express concerns to the Board of Commissioners on policies and issues affecting county government and its functions. Action will not be taken during this item on any issues brought forth that are not properly noticed. I just needed to read that so you know.
I understand that.
Okay.
I'm Dr. Lilia Jarding. I live in Rapid City in the currently not very well represented District 1. I had 2 things that I wanted to raise. One is the meetings between Commission and the Forest Service. Are those going to be public meetings, and are they going to be public noticed?
One of the regular board meetings that they have is public noticed. As far as these ones, you know, I think it's just a small gathering, ma'am, just a one-on-one to exchange information on what's going on in the county, what's going on there. There's no action taken. It's a report type thing, so I don't think those are going to be public noticed.
Will there be minutes or something that a person could get hold of?
I don't foresee that when we have meetings like that. Like I said, it's just an exchange of, it'd be like me giving a report of what happens with the commission.
Okay.
And them giving reports to them. So if you attend their meetings, you should know.
Okay. Okay. I
That's
just
the.
was curious on that.
Yeah, thanks for clarifying it. It's nothing, it's informal.
Okay. The original reason I came today is to let you know something that's going on at the state level. The Water Management Board of the Department of Environment and Natural Resources has set up a hearing for this Thursday on the temporary water permit application by Mineral Mountain Resources for their gold exploration operation. And the commission has a resolution from April asking that any such hearings be held in Rapid City, and this one is scheduled for Pierre. So I wondered if, I don't know what you can do that's not considered an official action, but I suppose since you've already done the action of the resolution, perhaps there could be some kind of a request forwarded to the DENR, the Water Management Board, to have a hearing here if they're going to have a hearing there.
Good point. Although we can't take no votes or action, we did write the letter. We could have it sent to the board,
Yeah, re-forward this maybe or
forward
something.
it to them
Yeah.
to reassure it. I mean, I don't think we need a motion or anything like that. The board passed that.
Yeah,
We could,
Yes.
I think we could take care of that.
okay. Thank you. I just want to make sure you knew about that, and I appreciate you doing that. And I'll be there Thursday, and if anything happens, I'll let you know.
I appreciate you bringing that forward, because I seen that email a while back, and it's a good point. We should send that letter of what our resolution, what we said, so we'll
Want me to
get,
drop off copies, or?
I think Holly's got it, don't you, huh? Yeah.
Thank you for hanging with me, and I'm hanging with you all the way this long, so.
Thank you for hanging with us. With that, is there any more public comment? Seeing none, we have no executive session. So, the move and seconded to adjourn. All in favor indicate saying aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries unanimously.